All right, there we go. So, on that note, everyone, welcome to the Technically Honored podcast. I am your main host, Melodic Warrior, and today with me, I have some of my friends joining me. So, we are going to start in alphabetical order. So, all right, Cmad, will you please introduce yourself first?
Well, my name is Cmad, aka Chase. I am a Call of Duty nerd, PC tech nerd, and I don't know if you know it, drone pilot nerd, FEV racer. So it's a lot of nerdy stuff. So if you think Melodic's a nerd, I take it up a little bit.
All right, fair enough. And funny?
Can I use my YouTube name?
Sure, if you that's what you wanted, so people can know where to find you.
Yeah. I am a lazy creepypasta, and I do scary stories on the YouTubes.
Nice, nice. And by the way, to those that are listening to this podcast, we will make sure to get you a link in the description. Please give him a follow so that way he can maybe grow a little bit of his, viewer base. So, next up, I have Ghost with me. Ghost, please introduce yourself.
I'm Ghost. I'm just your casual nerd who just plays video games a lot.
Awesome. Pretty short, sweet, and simple. I like it, I like it. And then, last but not least on the list, but probably the wisest of us all, we have Muscles.
Oh, wisest. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm Uncle Muscles. I'm the oldest one in the group. That's why I'm the wisest. Got the most years and experience on me. I'm kind of cool, if I do say so myself. Kind of a big deal. I don't know. You'll see. Yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Okay, that is very interesting way to open up. I expected more banter from the rest of them, but instead I think I was surprised, so I'll take it.
The banter's coming. Just wait.
Oh my.
Eventually.
Oh,
Eventually.
Well, I couldn't deny Uncle Muscles. He wasn't wrong. The rest of you, I doubt your wisdom.
I wasn't expecting anybody to come in with a steel chair in the middle of my intro. Everybody's got to get their entrance.
mm-hmm.
His name is John Cena.
Oh, wait, just wait.
You can't see me.
Good grief. It almost sounds like the start to a Monty Python movie, and the next thing we'll just need is just an incredible opener, like in the Holy Grail.
And now for something completely different.
Right? But anyway, let's go ahead and get to the subject material at hand. So, if any of you are big Mass Effect followers, most of you are probably aware that back on N7 Day, which was November 7th, they celebrated, what was it, the 10th anniversary, I think, of Mass Effect?
No, I think it came out the first one. I think it was like 2008 or 9 or something.
Let me check
Something
on
like
that.
that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've looked at release dates and all that. Because
Uh-huh.
I mean,
2017 was the 10-year anniversary of Mass Effect, the first one.
I see. Yep, November 20th, 2007. So in all reality, they would have actually been.
2017, yeah.
Yep. Well, either
I
way.
was.
Well, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I was close.
No, it's fine. So you're actually pretty good there. So, um, yeah. So November 20th, 2007 was when the first one was released, and so that would actually put it at 13 years then. So to get back on track, they dropped the announcement that there was going to be a sort of a they're calling it a remaster, but with the information that we're about to drop here today, it's really a remake. Let's face it, because although it's keeping the original content, in terms of graphics and other things that are available, there's going to be quite a few changes that'll come along with it, and so that's what this podcast is about. We're going to go over it because most of these people here have experience with the Mass Effect series. Ghost and Cmad in particular don't have as much experience, but the goal is we're hoping to give you at least a balanced view from those who have familiarity with the series and with those who don't have as much familiarity but are just as hyped about it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into it. If you guys need to, please refer to the notes I gave you so that way we can try to follow along as best as possible. Oh dear God, words.
Words are
No
hard.
worries, ladies and gentlemen. English is the hardest language
So, I
in the
thought I was
world.
drunk.
I just
I'm
actually,
drunk tired
well, I just woke up about like 2 hours ago, so
from a nap.
You should be good to go then. Fuck.
I
I was
know.
door dashing.
Well, it didn't help that my blood sugar was giving me trouble. So when I woke up, so I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is gonna be fun. Anyway, on that note, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, for our listeners that won't have the notes, um, I think it was about, I want to say it was the second week in June. On Reddit, there was a quality assurance tester that had dropped an entire leak about the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. We didn't know that's what it was called at that time. And long story short is that it remained on the Mass Effect subreddit for the longest time, did not get a lot of views, and nobody really believed it. I decided to take a leap of faith and believe the guy based off what he wrote down. He no longer works at EA as a quality assurance tester. He just basically moved on to another job. But basically, he and we talked a couple times, and I was going to drop this information in more detail, which I did around the time of N7 Day. And so far, everything that he has leaked out has been confirmed. And so what we're going to do is just go over that material, since really that is the most concrete material we have. I don't know about these reporters with the some of these tech and gaming journals like IGN and such. I don't know where they're getting their information from, but especially the one thing that irritated me. Like, I don't know if you guys, and you guys can respond to this, but when leaks were first coming out from some of these tech journalists, they kept saying there was going to be a release date of about October, November. I don't know if any of you are aware or not.
I'm
not aware, no.
about that.
Yeah, I have not seen anything about that.
Well, because they've been reporting on it since about May, June, but it actually took until July before a lot of reporters got on board with it. And long story short, basically they kept saying it's going to drop in October, November, and then the one guy who had a lot of sources, I forget the name of the reporter, he then said, oh, his source came back and said that it got pushed back to February and such. And then when N7 Day rolled around, BioWare confirmed they literally had never had any intentions to drop it in this year. It was always aimed for next calendar year. So the quality assurance tester here, he'll go over that. And long story short, well, there's gonna a lot of material we got to go over. So I'm just gonna read only the first paragraph, and then we'll go from there. So the name of the user is Aspire to Be Good. He's no longer on Reddit, but I got to talk with him one time since he left, and he's doing okay these days. Alright, so the Mass Effect Remaster. Here is what he knew. Hopefully this brings good news to everyone. I work for EA as a quality assurance tester. You should expect an announcement sometime after EA Play this year, as EA wants to show off brand new games at this year's event. Expect Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster announcement and release date during N7 Day this year, which we all saw. I will break it down game by game. All 3 games have been ported into the Frostbite engine. BioWare has had a third team primarily working on this game with assistance from multiple EA Games studios: Criterion, EA Gothenburg, formerly Ghost Games, Motive, and DICE. I am unsure of the official capacity and help from the previous studios, but I know all of them are helping in some shape. This remaster has been in the works since early 2017. BioWare didn't start full production of it until after Anthem launched. Parts of the Mass Effect Andromeda team led by Mac Walters are spearheading this remaster, with Casey Hudson also heavily involved. I also want to give a side note, guys. Casey Hudson has officially retired from the gaming industry, and so he was replaced by, guy's name is Mike, but he was one of the guys who used to be head director of the Dragon Age project. So anyway, however, Casey Hudson is also busy helping with Anthem and Dragon Age 4. Of course, that no longer is relevant. So let's start with that first part there. Um, what was your first gut reaction hearing that the game was being put onto the Frostbite engine?
I was
Joy.
excited. Excitement.
Yeah.
Because
Uh,
the Frostbite engine looks really beautiful.
I was gonna say that too. I'm excited to see, especially the first one, get a visual update,
Yes.
and
Amazing.
gameplay, like mechanics and everything. 'Cause I'm not like, even though Frostbite at this point may seem a little bit outdated compared to things like other games that are out right now. Um, it's not bad, and I'll still play it.
Okay. So funny. It looked like you were about to say something.
When oh no, I said it looks beautiful.
Oh, okay. No, you're good. You're good. Well, what do you think about that C? Because I know, apart from these guys, you and I are probably very similar in the way we think about in technical terms. Um, what's your opinion on taking a game that started in the Unreal, basically the Unreal Engine, and being ported over to the Frostbite engine?
Well, I haven't seen too much gameplay on the Frostbite engine, but from what I know, I would imagine it has to be very good because the Unreal Engine is a very, very good engine. It's a very popular engine for a lot of games. Um, Huge games have used it, to have billions of people on it, and the engine, it works fine, even with the updates of the new Unreal Engine 3. Everything with the updates of it, it's been fine. It's been working unreal, no pun intended. But
Hardy,
I would
hardy.
have to see some stuff, some gameplay and some videos on the Frostbite engine to see what's the difference is to really give 100% answer. But for them having to do that, there was obviously a reason, and whether it's a good reason or a bad reason, I don't know.
Yeah. So I and Ghost. Before get into my launch spiel, because I do have a lot to comment on that. What are your thoughts on seeing it in the Frostbite engine versus the Unreal Engine that it originally had?
Oh, I'm definitely excited because I've seen what the Frostbite engine can do compared to those old graphics. Like I've seen the old graphics, I've seen them a bunch. So like seeing this visual upgrade, honestly, I'm honestly really excited for that. It's
Awesome.
just yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what a lot of the fans in the series are going to be appreciating is the fact that there's going to be that graphical upgrade. I know the whole backstory to this because again, a lot of people I've talked to it, and um, in case anybody's wondering, what spearheaded this whole thing was a YouTube video I had watched of somebody speculating about the new building that, well, it was new last year, and by last year I mean calendar year 2019, that BioWare had purchased as their new headquarters. And long story short, he was able to speculate based off the design of the building, how many people were going to be working under that roof, and what the way that they were advertising themselves and doing marketing. He was able to speculate that basically he knew that they were going to revive a lot of the old franchises and such that were thought to be long dead. But this whole story starts basically with the fact that, as many of you know, Anthem was just a total disaster. Let's just put it that way. And basically, EA ended up losing enough money that, um, and a lot of people don't remember this, but between 2017 and 2018, there was a changeover in the executive leadership at EA. A lot of old executives were, either quit or left to go to other companies. And long story short, it was the new executives that kind of were the ones that helped push everything forward. And from what I understand, there had always been plans in place to try to do this series, the original trilogy, justice and put it in a format that was clean from a graphical perspective, but it was going to take a long time to do it. They knew, um, and they chose to go with the Frostbite engine not only because it was in house, um, but because by the time 2017 had rolled around, BioWare had been trained on it thanks to Mass Effect Andromeda, and so they figured by going with an engine that had good lighting and such, they would be able to accomplish their ultimate goal of having a game that looks good but still feels like the original experience. And I'll just say this: if any of you get a chance to talk on Alex Zedra's server, their moderator Tika, she has a very strong opinion about the Frostbite engine because someone she used to know used to work in that company as a developer on the Frostbite engine, and what most people don't know is the first two iterations of the Frostbite engine, which was Frostbite 1 and Frostbite 1. I want to say it's 1.2, I think it was. They were very messy in terms of being able to program and develop games for those engines. It really wasn't until Frostbite Engine 2, which is what Battlefield 4 used, that they worked out a lot of the bugs. And so nowadays, the Frostbite engine is so good that even regular modders, when they go back and mod a lot of these Frostbite engine-based games like Battlefield, like Battlefront, and so on, it's actually not that hard to mod for them, and you don't have as many stability crashes as you would on other engines. So that was like one of the biggest reasons why the engine was ultimately chosen to make sure the experience was a good one.
Yeah, so there's Frostbite 1, 1.5, 2, and 3. And 1 starts with Battlefield Bad Company.
Correct.
Just to keep a line of succession here. Battlefield Bad Company 2 was on 1.5. Battlefield 3 was on 2. Battlefield 4 was on 3.
Okay, yeah. It's a little hard for me to keep track of those generations, but I'm glad
I just pulled up the wiki for it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Muscle. So I may need your help keeping that straight because my memory is not the greatest with that.
Right. Yeah. So, in subject that we're talking about here, Mass Effect Andromeda is on 3.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because he's absolutely right. And one of the things that they ended up hashing out in that was the environmental destruction, because on Frostbite Engine 1.5 and Frostbite 2, Frostbite 2 is where it went to a new level, but it really wasn't until Frostbite 3 that they could do it, and it didn't really cause instability issues when you would, have the game run and stream. Because it used to be, I don't know if any of you have played Battlefield 3 or 4, but...
Oh yeah, a lot.
Yeah, no, I can't say I have.
Okay, well, Muscles, maybe you can appreciate this.
I love the Battlefield franchise.
Oh yeah, I do too. I have a lot of hours soaked in, specifically with 1942 in Vietnam. So my question...
Yeah, Vietnam's great.
Oh, I know, right? But my question to you, Muscles, is: did you ever really notice how there was a major difference in terms of the smoothness of those environmental mechanics in Battlefield 3 versus Battlefield 4?
Yes, totally. You can just feel it when you're running, just over the slightest difference in surface.
Yeah.
Or vaulting over something. Yeah.
Yeah.
You totally feel it in the mechanics and the feeling of the game.
Yeah, and that was what their main goal was, because they realized that they were onto something good, but they were having so much trouble getting some of that stuff fixed at its core. So that's why Frostbite 3 was made, was to try to get around some of those environmental mechanical issues that they were having. And albeit it wasn't the easiest implementation, I'm sure, as you know, from Battlefield 4's released, but they eventually got the problems entirely resolved.
Yeah, I love those games, especially just for one. They brought in the Levolution part of it, and I've always loved the destruction that they brought. Because what other games can you drive a tank through a house and there's not many.
Or how about when it's multiplayer, and you keep on blowing up a building, and then eventually the whole building falls down.
Yep, that's
Good times.
Forget going in to clear the building. Just bring down the whole building.
Yeah, I mean it kills them still, so why not? Just blow them out of there.
Yeah, and that's all very good points. I think the one thing I appreciated more so than anybody did about the Frostbite engine was, at its time, it was, and even to this day, I would even say it's still way ahead of what it's capable of doing with shadows and lighting. And this is one of the reasons why I can't necessarily say I'm totally into a lot of this modern ray tracing stuff they put out there, because I I find from my personal experience, if you're talking lighting and shadows, let's just be honest, anything that's on any of the Frostbite engines looks almost as good as some of these games that have ray tracing capability.
Yeah, for sure. Hell, even when we start talking about lighting in games and shadows, especially, I've noticed that just in Modern Warfare, somebody's shadow will preempt them coming around a corner. Yeah, and if you don't have a powerful enough system to run that type of setting on a high enough, you're missing out. You can get some easy kills off that.
Absolutely. Which is why I can't wait to upgrade to 6800 XT, but that's neither here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's another podcast there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, it is. So tune in for that.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my man has spoken.
My PC's perfect.
Perfect.
At least you think it is.
It's perfect.
Well, maybe for
Perfect
you.
is a strong word.
It is God tier.
There's even the engine with ray tracing or even with it without ray tracing, it looks good, but then you turn it on and it's just like you didn't think it could get better.
It's a work in progress, especially if all the new graphics, ray tracing being introduced fully to everybody now. It still needs a lot of work. Some games it's amazing from what the game has looked. I mean, it looks like a completely new game. Other games it looks worse, which is shocking in a way.
Yeah,
But
they don't have it tweaked right usually.
They just need to change some of the settings to where that game handles differently. But I mean, the system you need to have though for some of the games to be able to actually rock full ray tracing and all the new graphic settings involved with ray tracing, it's just the average person, even large content creator, like with millions of subscribers, doesn't even have that system, right? So it's any game that has ray tracing that really pulls graphics without ray tracing and all the high-end settings enabled, that makes the game look almost realistic, if not more realistic than possible. It's not possible if you don't have a complete supercomputer that's tens of thousands of dollars. But anyway, we're getting off topic now, so
Yeah. So so I think it's safe to say though that what we're talking about essentially is really that from just a looks perspective, it's a huge upgrade to the game overall. And the one thing I think it'll bring is it's going to bring in more open world feeling to the game, because I don't know if anybody feels this way, but when running through the original trilogy, so this question's more for Funny and Muscles, but did any of you feel like that it felt a little bit constrained in terms of what you were able to do on a given world or map, and that they didn't really do a better job with that until they got to Mass Effect 3?
Yes. I noticed that in 1, you play most of the games like you're like Gumby. You're standing up straight the entire time. And then, like, in order to get into cover, you really got to, like, push into a surface. 2, it improved a little bit on that and being able to move cover to cover. And then 3 really made a huge improvement on the combat in cover-based movement. Almost like they were starting to realize, like, maybe we should make this more like Gears of War, which they really should. I mean, Gears of War definitely set a bar for that type of gameplay in the third-person shooters. I don't know, Funny, you got anything to say?
What was your experience, Funny?
With what?
Well, how did you feel about the just the environments and such because of the game engines they had to work with that
We're talking about Mass Effect 1?
well, not just Mass Effect 1, but in the entire trilogy, because like I was saying, I just felt like it wasn't until Mass Effect 3 that they finally got the environmental aspects down good enough that you felt like you had more freedom to run around on the maps in Mass Effect 3 than you did on 2
Oh
and
yeah,
1.
because in Mass Effect 1, it was a fun game. Like I loved the hell out of it. But I wish that they had more diversity within the planets that you explore because to me, it felt like I was on the same 5 planets but just different scenery pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So but I did like how they were more kind of more diversified in the later entries.
Yeah, they've definitely made visual improvements, especially into
Yeah.
Andromeda. I didn't notice that, even though I have bone to pick with like the movement of Andromeda. I will say that the environments were definitely beautiful.
Yeah, I
They
do.
were.
Oh,
I
for
liked them.
sure. I do agree with that 100% because there was a
I
lot
need it.
there was like a lot of like for instance, um uh lens flares, because that almost was non-existent in Unreal 3. But when they got to the Frostbite engine, um the lens flares, the reflections you could get were absolutely gorgeous. And so sometimes you
Yeah,
could
it's J.J. Abrams' favorite effect.
yeah.
God rays everywhere.
Well, it was true. Depending on which planet or system you went to, you could have all kinds of different refractions of light and reflections of light going on that you just couldn't have in previous engines.
In Mass Effect Andromeda, I do like how the game is more brighter than the other games. Like the other games where they look kind of dark-ish, and then Andromeda they were all
Yeah, the
nice and
color
bright
palette.
and colorful. Yeah, brighter colors, which looks pretty nice.
Yeah.
I think the color palette serves to the mood of the game. How
Hmm.
it starts, it gets when in 3 it's more of like an apocalyptic type of thing,
Hmm.
galaxy wide. So the palette, in my opinion, should be darker to put you in that mindset, in that mood that doom is on the horizon.
Yeah.
You and in Andromeda, you're in this new galaxy, so that's why it's more vibrant. Is like, oh, we're exploring this new place. We're
Yeah,
bringing, we're making a new life. It's like, whoa.
right. Yeah, it's new. It's primordial. There's new
Yeah.
things to be had here. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you guys are talking about that because if you want to understand how that works, there was a game designer slash researcher who was on the Moore's Law's Dead YouTube channel. So, in case nobody knows, Moore's Law is Dead is a YouTube channel that's dedicated to mainly to uh, focusing on gaming hardware and such. If you want to know more about how game design works and such, the guy who runs the channel, his name's Tom. He had a guest on who does game research as well as game research and design, and he actually laid it out how it works and such. And he was also able to explain, how, like for instance, Assassin's Creed was able to introduce the mechanics of being able to do rooftop maneuvers and such. So it's really cool information. I'm going to have a link in the description below to Tom's channel as well as to his podcast called Broken Silicon, where he had that game researcher on. I would definitely recommend check it out if you need to understand how games work. So definitely good information there. So to go back real quick to the game engine, so let's take another 5 minutes and then move on, so we're not on this too long. What most people need to understand is that when the first Mass Effect came out, Unreal Engine 3 was the first iteration of Unreal that was really beginning to pick up steam in the gaming industry. And what made it so unique was that while it wasn't really well developed and coded for for using on a desktop, it was really good for consoles. And anybody who ever purchased Mass Effect around that time would know that when Mass Effect was originally released, you could only get it on the Xbox 360 at first, because the goal was to develop it for the consoles, and then a short time after that, it came out on the PC. And that's one of the reasons why, if you compare and contrast how controls were versus that one, Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, there's such a huge difference, because you have to bear in mind from a design perspective, how did they have to design the game so that even the most basic user on a console could, still access a lot of the same features.
And for a frame of reference, Gears of War, Unreal Engine 3 came out 2006. Mass Effect, Unreal Engine 3, 2007.
Mm-hmm. So at that time, Unreal Engine was just, getting a fresh start. So
yeah, that was because Gears of War was the first one on 3.
Yep, exactly. And if anybody wants to, if you download the documentary video that's included with the original Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2 documentaries, as well as the Mass Effect 3 documentary that's included as part of the digital edition, I would highly recommend watch those documentaries. I think each of them are about 20 minutes long, and a lot of the original team members go over what it was they had to work with and what the mindset was. So there's a lot of good information you can glean there. So, all right. So with that being said, it sounds like we were able to cover that part really well. So let's go ahead and move on to Mass Effect. All right. So,
Yay.
Yeah. So the first... Yeah, I love how Ghost is just like, oh, finally, we're there. Oh, dear. So...
That wasn't me. That was funny.
Oh, that was funny?
Huh?
Well, that's funny.
Oh.
Look at this nerd over here fawning.
Wow.
Nerd. Right up. Nerd.
What I do?
Roddick, will you ever get my name right? Will you ever not confuse me with someone?
Oh, dear God.
That's another podcast there, ladies and gentlemen.
What? The many mix-ups of melodic?
You're my
Yes.
tiger.
Out. Get out now.
Okay.
Crash, ban this guy.
Move
You
on.
guys love me.
No. My goodness. All right. Well, let's all stay a little patient. What?
Nothing.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay. Well, let me know if you have something you need to share with the class. Okay.
Don't be shy.
All right. On that note, let's hop into the first game.
Ladies and gentlemen, here comes the Mass Effect news.
Oh, damn. That was really good, C.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, here's what he said about the first Mass Effect. Major graphical and gameplay changes. Gameplay is more in line with Andromeda fluidity, but instead of the original weapon and armor systems in that game, it is more streamlined like Mass Effect 3. However, this game has the least robust gameplay of the three in the remaster. The change in gameplay has also altered some of the level design in boss battles. Benezia is no longer in the room with the Rachni Queen, but is instead in a more open environment. Both the Saren's battles have had the environments expanded to offer better options for gameplay. So, I'm going to stop right there. Let's talk about the armor system and the weapon system. I get that they had to make it for the consoles, and at that time, RPGs, really the only RPGs they had for reference were...
I knocked out all your teeth.
Kid problem?
Moving on.
Oh, did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Somebody needs to remember their mute button.
Going to the dental.
Sorry, we can cut this out in post. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It doesn't... No, it's all good. That's why there's editing tools. But, yeah, she's sounding a little feisty there. I'm not going to lie.
She's all like, when I'm going to the dentist, I'm all like, when I knock out all your teeth. she all runs.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, let's
Uh,
let's cut that out.
Yeah, we don't want. Oh, yeah, cut that out. Editor, cut that out, please.
They'll be like, this guy's kind of
Child abuse?
abusive.
Question mark.
Yeah, child abuse. Call the cops.
Oh dear God.
Back to the thing.
Yeah. So
Back
let's.
to the podcast.
Yeah. But what was your initial impression for those who were playing the original Mass Effect? Like with the weapons on the armor system, I know they didn't have a lot of reference material at that time because prior to then, the only RPG that had a really good weapons and armor system as well as crafting system was really Baldur's Gate. Let's face it. I mean, apart from that, you couldn't really get any better than that. But with what they had to work with, what was your initial take on the first one?
The first one didn't really have good armor. Like, I never really cared about the armor in the first one. I don't know, I don't know. Is that weird?
I'm just trying to remember it. Wasn't it just like you just
I
got
remember
the
it, like-
items and there wasn't anything else that you just do to it?
You had to
Just
like
drops?
there was better
buying
armor and
stuff.
better guns, but back in the first one, it wasn't all that good. But it was still fun.
Well, so let me jump off what Funny had said. So basically, he's right. So in the first Mass Effect, the armor system, the way it worked was that you did not have customizable plates or anything like that as what came in Mass Effect 3. The only thing you could do is buy entire suits of armor, which just never really made sense to me why you would do it that way. I think the only part you could buy separate were the helmets, and that was really about it. But the problem is that you were super constrained with what suits of armor you could wear, because it all depended on what role you chose. So let's say you chose soldier, right? Well, then you would have heavy armor, which was tough, could take a punch, and just basically keep you alive. You had access to all of that. But if you were, let's say, an engineer, you never got access to heavy armor. The most you could get was medium armor, and even then, it was more geared towards trying to enhance your tech powers over everything else. So, in that regard, it just wasn't very customizable. The only way you could get armor, you are correct, Muscles, is that you could loot it off enemies, you could loot it out of supply boxes, or you could, and Funny is correct when he says this, you could buy them in the shop, but they were absolutely ludicrously expensive for what they were.
Yeah, I think I remember farming, doing whatever I could to get the cash to buy armor, and that was it.
Yep.
I don't know how. I can't remember what exactly I did though. I think I only played soldier. I think in the first one too. So it was definitely kind of armor dependent.
Very much so. And it was also the only class you could choose where you had a wider range of weapons you could use.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Because the weapon system in that game was a totally different thing. So unlike it was when you went into Mass Effect 2 or 3, the weapon system upgrade was if you were, let's say you were a soldier class, you pretty much had most weapons available to you, if not all. But if you were any other type of class, so like let's say an infiltrator, then you could only use like a pistol, and what else did they use? Because SMGs were actually classified with pistols, which was really weird. I never understood that. But yeah, so anyway, we'll just move on to how the upgrades of it work because I don't want to spend too much time on that.
Right.
But upgrading weapons though was stupid ridiculous. So instead of it being like a crafting system where you could use resources to, well, basically, upgrade a single weapon and keep that weapon, the the way a weapon would upgrade is, like, let's say you picked up a tier 1 of a M7 Avenger, right? Well, if you wanted to upgrade it, you either had to go buy a tier 2 one, or you had to wait until you got the resources, and then you could craft like a tier 3 one. And it was so time consuming when you really got down to the bare bones, to get your weapons upgraded. So, like in my case, I would usually just try to pick it off dead enemies, because that was the best, way that you would have you know, at least something that would be able to get you a little bit faster, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it,
Mm-hmm.
to a higher tier of weapons, so that you could output more damage.
Yeah, and the different types of ammunition as well.
Oh God, don't even. Well, actually, no, I don't think there were different types of. Oh,
In the first one, your guns recharged.
yeah. So you didn't have like an actual ammo count. It was, you pretty much had infinite ammo, but the thermal clips did have a heat capacity on them. Snipers were the worst of them, with shotguns coming a close second. So if you didn't time your shots correctly, you could easily overheat your weapons.
Like in the second one, I was so happy when they had like actual ammo for your guns. I was like, yes.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I can imagine for you, Muscles, it was probably a similar thing, because didn't, I don't know if you had this experience, Muscles, but did you ever find yourself where you would be like in a situation where you would have swarms of enemies coming your way, but because all you had was like heavier weapons at your disposal as a soldier, um, more often than not, you would like maybe use a couple rounds on a shotgun and then have to immediately switch to a pistol.
Yeah, thinking back on it now, maybe it should have been better played like Doom 2016 or even Doom Eternal now, where weapon swapping is the meta, pretty much. You shoot one, and before you can reload, you just immediately swap to another and just keep on doing that. Fire switch, fire switch, fire switch. It might have been better to do that back then, before that actually became more of a modern thing that people realized. I'm trying to remember what I think I was more of a snipers gameplay back then. Send in your stupid AI companions to soak up all the fire and get all the attention, and you just sit back and headshot everything.
Yeah, that is the one thing I do remember, is that your companions, you basically couldn't rely on them at all to hit worth diddly.
Right. But you have to tell them to do all their biotics, pretty much. Like, I would only carry with me the people who had good biotic abilities to supplement my soldier gameplay.
Me too.
For me, what I ended up doing was I actually relied more on tech powers, and so that of course means that pretty much the only ones who are good for that are Tally and Garrus, right? So I would end up running with them very, very often to try to combat a lot of the crap that would go on in the game.
It's definitely a solid combo right there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Because if you think about it, Garrus has his sniper, Tally has her shotgun, combined with the tech powers they have available, and you pretty much have what I would say is a dream team that's good, especially against synthetics. So, I'm very happy to see at the very least that that's going to change here. With the original Mass Effect, that hopefully it'll give us more fluidity in the overall battle flow, like when you're on a map and you have a lot of enemies to deal with. Which actually brings us to that point. Do any of you remember that battle with Benezia and in the room where the Rachni Queen is stored?
Yeah, it was a square.
I know. Because basically, the only way you could maneuver around was you pretty much ran up and down these stairs all the frickin' time to try to avoid a lot of the countermeasures that Benezia would employ against you. And I absolutely hated it myself because um, if you weren't careful, um, it would be very easy for Saren's minions to basically just trap you in a corner, and unless you had like a really good shotgun or sniper rifle, as well as some of the better either biotic or tech abilities at your disposal, you pretty much were screwed. So that's one of the reasons why I was actually happy when they said that, that at the very least they put Benezia in a more open environment, so that way there's at least a little more range of motion.
Good. Yeah. Last type of boss fight you want to face off against is something so constricting like that.
Yeah. Well, and the good news is he also mentions that in both of the Saren battles, their environments have been expanded, so you get more options for gameplay. Um, because, I know for me, I didn't mind the Saren battle that took place on. Um, does anybody remember what the planet was where they found the why can't I think of the name? There we go. The Krogan cloning facility he had set up.
Trying to look it up right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up too while we're talking here.
Vermeer?
It might have been that. Let me look at that real quick. Yep, you're right. It's Vermeer. On Vermeer is where you basically go after the Krogan cloning facility and have that battle with Saren. Okay, so that makes sense. I didn't mind that one so much. It was when you go to face off against Saren, right after you land on the Citadel and you make it to the council room to go face him down to try to convince him at the very least to, well, uh, try to do something about his motives and such. In that one, I never really understood why they decided that you would just basically be standing on the the platform where council's audience would stand, and then you just basically fall down into the foundation area that was below it, and then battle it out with Saren in that closed environment.
Yeah, the combat environments weren't very good.
I'm hoping they fix that audio issue where in the cutscenes there's like no music, no sound effects. All you can hear is like Shepard grunting or something. Like that was terrible. It made the cutscenes feel awkward.
You're not wrong about that, and that was a very consistent problem throughout all three of the Mass Effects, where there would be certain
Yes,
scenes that would just glitch out with their audio.
I hated it. Like every single time it was just dead silence. Like give me something.
Yeah, I get it, man. I get it.
Well, I think that's the number one thing, though. If any kind of cutscene in, whatever game it is, whatever type of game mode it is, right? You want to have some kind of music in the background, right? But you also, it depends on the cutscene theme, if that makes sense, right? It depends on what because if you give it music, it gives it a feel, right? If you don't give it, music and you just hear like, characters, audio, grunting, screaming,
Yeah,
crying, right?
weird.
You're able to feel that, be in that situation, feel the situation, if that makes sense, right?
Like when
You know,
one of the first cutscenes where Shepard finds that pillar thing in the first mission. Uh, like when it goes to the cutscene, because one of his, I think it was someone was like about to get caught in it or something. I forgot what happened, but Shepard like runs to the person and like pushes him out of the way, and the whole time there's like no sound, and then all you hear is Shepard push. Then that was it. I was just like, this is weird.
You're talking about the opening mission that introduces the entire Mass Effect series. It's
Yeah, the opening mission,
yeah.
and there was other missions too where there was no sound in cutscenes here, like every now and then.
So basically, what it is it was what did they call it? Because it was a Prothean it was like a Prothean communication device, basically beacon. That's it. It was basically a Prothean beacon, and it the way it worked was that it would communicate using a something of a wireless signal that would communicate with the neural structure of the organic in front of it, and that way it could transmit all the data at once into the person's nervous system. um, and the planet that it took place on is called Eden Prime. So whenever you're playing the entire Mass Effect trilogy, anytime Eden Prime comes up, you'll hear all kinds of different opinions from the various characters about it, because that's pretty much where Mass Effect begins. Um, so yeah, so it sounds like we definitely have some very interesting opinions when it comes to the gameplay part, and we're pretty much, at least in terms of expectations, on the same page. So I'm kind of curious to see myself exactly where it's going to go with that. Um, and it's funny you're talking about cutscenes, see, because he does talk about that. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Right now, what I want to get to is the next paragraph. So in the next paragraph, he says the planet exploration from Mass Effect 1 has been changed to be more in line with Mass Effect 3 planet scanning. However, there are still a few planets to land on. Do not expect Andromeda-size open worlds. I would say every planet combined is about equal to EOS in terms of size and areas to explore. This game is a very linear experience. Galaxy Map and Galaxy Exploration is Mass Effect 3 version, but with more to explore in this remaster. And I know for me, on a personal level, I can actually appreciate that more, because what I absolutely hated, and this is one of the reasons why I stopped midway in one of my runs on Mass Effect 1 one time, was because the planet, when you landed on a planet that was explorable, you had a large area you could cover, but there just wasn't a lot going on the planet. And the distance you had to drive to get from, one point of interest to another was just absolutely mind numbing. And you were usually climbing over a lot of hills and mountains. And because remember, the Mako, um, albeit is a very good APC to take around because it's very versatile, but you just couldn't control the thing. You couldn't steer it well.
Yeah, that was the first version of it. It's on wheels, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you had the Mako, and then in the very next game it was the M44 Hammerhead hover tank.
That's why I was saying
Mm.
it felt like you were on like the same 5 planets on the first one.
Yeah, that's pretty much actually a good way to describe it. Is that my guess is that they had to reuse a lot of map textures and assets over and over again to save on development time. But even with that said, that's where I feel like they did well with Mass Effect 3, was that when you did get onto a planet that had an open environment that was explorable, it did kind of feel much better. but I don't really. I'll admit, this is the one thing I think they got right with Andromeda that they didn't get right with the other titles, is being able to explore open worlds and feeling like you were actually accomplishing something along the way.
How about them giant worms?
Oh dear God, the Thresher Malls.
Yep.
Oh my God, those were an absolute pain in the butt because
Yeah.
for whatever reason, they had those things programmed at random spawn spots. And I was able to figure out, regardless of what world I'm on, where they would pop up. But the problem is that um, if you didn't time it right when you were driving around, and they were going to appear while you were driving, there was always that chance that you could accidentally drive over its spawn point when it's appearing. And if you did, it was like literally a one-shot insta-kill of your Mako.
Yep, I remember that, and I remember being very, very upset.
I know, it would piss me off sometimes real bad too. I don't know. Like with you, Funny, did you ever have that problem?
I don't really remember those giant worms. I don't know.
I'm kind of surprised because Thresher Moss is actually the only big organic creature that appears in all three titles.
Yeah, why?
Because, well, you have to remember, Thresher Malls were scattered across various worlds because of the Krogan. Because the Krogan, without even realizing it, sometimes would accidentally carry the spores of the Thresher Malls with them on their battle armor when they would go colonize another planet. And when the spores would
All
fall,
right,
yeah, when the spores would
I
fall off,
remember that quest.
yep, and when the spores would fall off the armor, basically it would go into the soil, and just like when you get a uh, let's see, I'm trying to think.
What? It's kind of like a martyrdom thing. Like if you kill me in battle, now you got to fight this thing.
Kind of ish. It kind of just felt like that in a sense, but it was kind of weird uh, with some of the stuff because like I think it behaved more like in the sense of like how parasitic tapeworms behave, where they lay their eggs inside the host, right, and then the host usually has to um, deplete the eggs on the ground somehow, and then if another animal that is supposed to play host to happens to wander by and accidentally gets some of the eggs on it, then the worm can attach itself and get inside the host. And it was kind of a similar thing, was that when the spore would fall on the ground, as long as it landed on some sort of soil, then it would remain inside the egg until it was the spore, until it was fully developed. And then once it had developed enough into at least something akin to its like the end of its larvae stage, then it would break out of its spore and then start, feasting off whatever was available in the surrounding environment.
Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, they're nasty little creatures. If you want to know more about them, go to the Mass Effect wiki. There's a whole section about Thresher Malls. But most of the information I gleaned about Thresher Malls comes from inside the game, because the one thing I can appreciate about Mass Effect is that regardless of what element there was in the game, the original programmers and developers did a phenomenal job of going over the lore inside the all three original titles, as well as really giving good detailed description of exactly how certain creatures worked in the environment.
Yeah, they put in the effort to make it good, make it believable.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is one of the reasons why I'm very excited to see about this open world planet exploration, because I just think it's going to be a lot smoother like it was in Andromeda when you wanted to go explore a world.
Yeah, it's got to feel organic, like like an actual planet and not some barren wasteland.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we'll definitely see a lot of that. So I'm curious to see exactly if they take the route they did with Andromeda, where they actually had various environments. So, like, for instance, if you had gone to the world that they were supposed to originally colonize in Andromeda, it was mostly a desert. But then you switch over to the original Angara homeworld, and it's like a flippin' jungle, and you've got all this vegetation, all these different textures that you can stream in, and it was just really cool.
Yeah, that planet was the one I had in mind when I earlier was talking about the Andromeda visually, environmentally looking great.
Yep. Yeah, and I agree with you. You know, it definitely pushed the boundaries a little bit there. So we'll see how this looks, but I'm definitely excited to have the maps be more consistent and the various planets actually feel like they're actually got more depth and material to them. Um, so with that being said, the Galaxy map and Galaxy exploration is Mass Effect 3 version, but with more to explore in this remaster. Um, so I'm gonna go with you, Muscles, because Bonnie said he had to go take a quick break and check on his daughter. Um,
Okay.
um, so what was your experience using the Galaxy map in the original Mass Effect?
Oh, in the original, the one that really sticks to mind is the one in two. 'Cause I played two by far the most out of all the games.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Let me try to remember three. What was the difference between them?
So with Mass Effect 3, you really couldn't do any mining whatsoever. You still had the probe scanning where you could launch probes, but the only places you could launch probes was on areas of interest that would get pinged on your scans radar, so to speak, and
Yeah.
so therefore it might be credits, it might be relics, or it might be an object you have to get for a mission, or it might be an area where you need to land and deal with enemies. But in general, the idea was that in Mass Effect 3, it was very focused on um, specific resource gather, not really resource gathering, more like specific missions. I think is a better way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it didn't have the feel that Mass Effect 1 and 2 had, where you could launch probes on a surface and, gather up resources that way. Because I know in Mass Effect 2, that was one thing a lot of people enjoyed, was the ability to be able to mine things like platinum, EZO, off the surface of a planet using the probes.
Okay. Yeah, it's coming back to me now. You had a search and rescue.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was part of that whole. It contributed to the Galaxy at War system, right? The war assets.
Yep.
Yeah, that that was okay. I was all right with that. I kind of like that two kind of took you out of the combat and made it feel more like a sci-fi space exploration game in that regard. Like, 'cause I'm a huge Star Trek fan too.
Okay.
So yeah, so like going around and scanning planets and stuff like that, that tickles, or scratches that little itch, that side of me. So, instead of just dropping in and blasting the shit out of everything, you can take a break and fly around and look at the planets, and you had fuel too, right? So I just remembered that. So you're like, wait a minute, do I have enough to get there and back? Jeez, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Can
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing also about the Mass Effect 2 planet scanning is how calming those sounds are. I don't know what it is,
Yeah,
but those are just some weird ASMR sounds, and I love them. I don't know.
should bring it back. And I played one. I actually played all of them on console. I was on Xbox, so you had the rumble in the controllers too to feel when you're getting close to something.
Okay. I'm kind of curious because I've heard from the posts that the developers have put on the forum for BioWare that they are going to utilize some of the new features available on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, probably after they release it for the PC and the Xbox One and PS4 first. So I'm kind of curious to see how that would feel on the oh shoot, what's it called? The
DualSense.
yeah, the DualSense controller, especially for the PlayStation, because you've got to wonder, especially how that would feel on the hands, since you're talking about different levels of tension depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, that's all
Probably.
beneath me now, being a PC
Yeah.
Master Race man.
You poked that bear.
That's a different podcast. No,
Yep.
That's funny.
I think it'd be just awesome on the DualSense, honestly. I think, like, the DualShock, it's like, it's got those little vibration, but the DualSense is just, like, so much more advanced. It's like, yes. It's something, like, probably just awesome.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that because I've heard that in a lot of the shooters that are already readily available for the PS5, you can feel slight differences depending on what weapon you arm yourself with. So even in a game like Warzone, a lot of reviewers did say they did feel a little bit of a difference, even though it wasn't huge, but it still wasn't very noticeable anyway. So, I don't know. So we'll see what happens with that particular feature. Well, I hope everything's okay with Funny's daughter. Well, I think we're gonna have to carry on for the moment, and then he can chime in when he's ready.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah. So now, according to the quality assurance tester, he says if I have to make a comparison, the game graphically speaking looks similar to Dragon Age Inquisition. It's not a next-gen title, but the Mass Effect remake in the current generation Frostbite engine. Character models look good, but look even better in the Mass Effect 2 and 3 versions of the remaster. So it kind of goes back to what we were saying, right? That really, because of how good the Frostbite engine is, you don't even need to use like current gen graphics to make it look good. You can basically still use a lot of the graphics, because remember, Dragon Age Inquisition was technically the very last in-house title that BioWare worked on before Andromeda released.
I'm back.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I am too, because did any of you ever get a chance to see the gameplay from Dragon Age Inquisition?
Yeah, I have it.
I never got a chance to play it though, sadly.
I
never finished it, but I did. I have several hours in it.
Gotcha. And didn't you feel like, at least in terms of graphics, the game was still somewhat comparable to at least Battlefield 3?
Yeah. Especially in like view distance and scale, map sizes and everything.
You bring up an excellent point. I didn't think about that. I do admit Dragon Age Inquisition did utilize the scaling of view range and draw distance a lot better than I think Battlefield 3 did, which, thank God, that was something they improved in Battlefield 4. So I am curious to see how that's going to look on Mass Effect, because maybe we won't have those. Because, like, do you ever remember in any of the Mass Effect titles how you could look at something in a distance and it felt like you were looking at a colorful piece of wallpaper?
Yep, totally.
God,
I get that in Call of Duty now sometimes too.
Yeah, but I think in Call of Duty they did that on purpose to try to save on asset streaming, so that way data streaming was, um, a little bit easier on those who owned a hard drive.
Doesn't
Oh,
help
for
that you're
sure.
using a 20 times scope.
Yeah, using the 2 to 20 on the M82 and zooming it all the way up to 20, and everything's just potato except for players. So they stick out like sore thumbs.
I know, right? Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Because, I mean, I remember there were times I would hop into missions, and so, like, even in the cutscenes, right? If the character was where the camera was focused, the character would be crystal clear, but his background would just be completely destroyed by distortion or some other type of effect from the camera just not focusing well. Yeah, I don't know. It was such a huge changeover. But that's where I think Dragon Age Inquisition got it right, was because you didn't have those kind of problems going on. And they honestly, I think in some ways, helped to keep the game more consistent and feel more involved. So, yeah. So I don't know, but let's move on to the next point, because I don't think there's too much else I could say about that. Um, so then he says, now this is where it's going to get interesting. So this part technically hasn't been confirmed by BioWare, but the fact that it was in the quality assurance testing and it made it through the quality assurance testing is a very good sign that it indeed is going to be a part of the final cut, if you will, of the Legendary Edition. But this next part, he says, um, there are cut quests from the original game that have been added back to the remaster. It's maybe about 2 to 3 hours of gameplay, and Saren has more backstory shown through cutscenes. Now, that part, I don't know if anybody is like me on this one, but that part where it says it shows more of Saren's backstory, I am absolutely ecstatic about it. Because the one thing that always got to under my skin a little bit was that in the original Mass Effect, you really don't know much about Saren's backstory except what you're told by the Council, what you're told by those who knew Saren as a Spectre, and if you really wanted to know his story and his history between him and Admiral Anderson, you had to go to the comic strip that was entirely written in a small volume about Saren's story of how he basically sabotaged Admiral Anderson's ability to become a Spectre. And that's the only material, apart from that there is available on Saren's backstory. So I'm very happy to see, at the very least, that that's going to be something they'll add in. I don't know where you guys stand.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't know about all that extra content that you had to seek out in order to find out more about him. But for me, it doesn't make much of a difference because I'm still going to guilt him into shooting himself in the end of the game.
Saren's a jerk.
Well, yeah.
The funny thing about that is my playthrough, from 1 to 2 to 3, guilted Saren into blowing his own brains out, and then it came full circle in 3, where you get the Elusive Man to do the exact same thing. Like, I'm supposed to be a Paragon. This is pretty fucked up. Guilting people into committing suicide? It's more of a renegade thing, ain't
it? Yeah. But I think that was one of the aspects of Mass Effect, is it was known for being able to push the boundaries of moral decisions.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, but
punching somebody in the face in the middle of a discussion, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's true, because they did a lot of things that weren't terribly common for RPGs at that time. But to be honest, I feel like a lot of RPGs probably wouldn't have, I think, developed further in terms of their capabilities if Mass Effect hadn't introduced some of those ideas um, in a way that was easily digestible. Because if you did it the way, like for instance, moral decision making's done in Cyberpunk 2077, where it's like in your face and aggressive, I think around that time, because of the way the gaming industry was, as well as the social environment of a lot of people at that time, I don't think it would have been taken very well.
Oh yeah, I still see every time I play an RPG, I still see all those dialogue options in that same format, even though it will be listed differently, as like Paragon on top, the neutral in the middle, and the renegade on the bottom. And I can't shake it no matter what. Like, and I feel like devs also do that as well. How there's a format to their types of dialogue options where a certain type will always be at top and a certain type will always be at bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think of the Old Republic, like the MMO. Like you'll have the light side at the top. If there's a neutral option, it'll be in the middle, and then dark side is at the bottom. It's in that order.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I played that too a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and again, this kind of goes back and I think is a testament to how much of an impact Mass Effect as a franchise has really had on the entire gaming industry. Because if you mention the name Mass Effect, regardless of what part of the gaming industry you go to, whether it's the first-person shooters, the enthusiasts, the casual gamer, or the developers, or even those that are in executive positions that only deal with the business side, all of them will in one way, shape, or form say, yep, we've heard of Mass Effect, we're at least familiar with it. Maybe they don't know the details behind it, but they're at least familiar with it. And I think in many ways that's a huge testament to really how forward thinking the game as a whole was. To the point to where even today you still see a lot of those setups and mechanics that were new for Mass Effect, but now are considered standard in the industry.
This is something that just popped into mind. You know how in Mass Effect they say that the Turians, right, that how they eat only dextro-based foods.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 0 examples of dextro amino foods based on Earth, because all life on Earth is levo amino acids, and there's nothing dextro.
Correct.
So like, if you wanted to like find like, oh, what's a dextro-based food? There aren't any. They made it up for the game.
They did, but that's actually the beauty behind the game is that if you go and watch some of those documentaries that came with the digital edition of Mass Effect 2 as well as Mass Effect 3, they do go over that a little bit and explain that that was actually the biggest trigger point, if you will, of inspiration when they were dreaming up the first Mass Effect, was that they were trying to think from a scientific perspective of what would be possible to do if we had certain situations take place. And based off that, that's how they developed the entire Mass Effect universe as a whole. And that's one of the reasons why they use a lot of scientific terminology, as well as various different types of molecular structures and that sort of thing.
Yeah, left-handed or right-handed.
Yeah, exactly. So they put a lot more thought into it than I think a lot of people give credit for. But you don't know that unless you go and watch some of these documentaries and listen to some of these interviews. And that's the one thing I've always appreciated, is just the thoughtfulness they put in behind it.
Yep, you got to appreciate the little things like that.
Oh, yeah, because it really makes a difference. And so especially when you go to do quality assurance testing, you got to make sure that stuff is ready and that it's easy. It's in a format that you can understand, but it gives enough depth that you have a lot of gameplay that basically can keep a person preoccupied and feeling very rewarded, for hours at a time. And this is one of the reasons why, again, I'm going to have to link in the description, but I would recommend everybody go check out that Broken Silicon podcast where Tom had that game designer on, because he goes in, or game researcher, excuse me, because he goes into detail of what the thought process is when they talk to devs and their management about those kind of things. Because there's a lot more involved in it than with it than people realize. And sometimes it can make a game, and sometimes it can break the game entirely. So let's move on to the next topic because we spent a while on this one. Um, in the next one, he talks about the Normandy design. Shepard's cabin has been added for Mass Effect 1. Companions are no longer stashed in the cargo hold. Holy crap.
Hell yeah.
Dude, that is something they should have done in the first place, in my personal opinion. Because I always hated that you had to take an elevator ride just to go talk to your comrades.
Yeah. It and them stashed in the cargo hold, it feels like lazy design. Like, really? These guys have nowhere else to hang out on this big ass ship. Like, and you know it's big too. It expands in the later in the different versions of the game. Like, give me a break. Come on, cargo. Nobody wants to hang out in a cargo hold. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, as much as we gripe and moan about it, you got to remember they were a little bit constricted with what they had available for game design, because they're trying to save on data on the one side of the coin, but on the other side of the coin, they also still want to try to provide something of an experience. So really, the happy medium between the two is just to develop different environments. But the one thing I didn't like was, why did they put so many doors in the Normandy you just couldn't access?
Yeah, that like behind all those doors it's like potential content, just wasted opportunities.
You know what's even worse? The fact that they use elevators to disguise loading screens.
Well, to be fair, that was
Yeah.
a common game design feature in most games at that time, because remember, it hasn't been until the last 2 years that solid state is cheap enough that you can use that instead of using a hard drive. Remember, the bandwidth on a hard drive is 150 megabits per second on max bandwidth. That cannot even begin to compare to what an SSD is capable of.
Yeah, I remember Cerny talking about that for the dev conference for the PS5. It's like he was like, those giant winding hallways. That's just so we can load in the next area. That's what that's for. Those giant empty areas. That's for loading. Like those elevators, those lawn stairs. That's all just for loading.
Right.
That's why they're there.
Exactly, Ghost. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think Mark Cerny is the only one who's done a good job of clearing the air on that. And I want to get your input, C. But do you think that by having the solid state used for this Mass Effect Legendary Edition, that it's actually going to enhance the overall game experience because you're going to be able to stream in assets faster?
Well, it's probably gonna make the overall experience better because, your time from when, you react, right? And it'll be a lot faster, right? 'Cause, just everything for the consoles, the new generation of consoles are so much faster to where they can compete with, high-end laptops, lower-end mid-range PCs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the experience is going to be a lot better being at the new consoles, the new generation of consoles are so much more advanced than the last generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it just you kind of have to sit back and see, and just to see really what's going to happen. But I truly do think it will be a lot better of an experience for the console players on Mass Effect.
Yeah. Well,
So
I think so too, especially because Muscles can probably attest to this with me on this one. Um, with the Frostbite engine, it does take a while to load in, but when you load in, you didn't get the choppiness that you got with some of the earlier engines, even on a hard drive. because of the way asset streaming was handled on the Frostbite engine.
Yeah, yeah. I can confirm. Yeah.
Yeah, so so I think having the SSD, even a SATA SSD, you will definitely see a huge improvement. I still think there probably will be areas where they will need loading screens, but I don't think that these long elevator rides like they used to have for the Citadel are going to be necessary anymore. I think they're going to be much shorter, in my personal opinion, because they won't have to spend nearly as much time trying to make up for the fact that they're having to load in all those assets um, using basically the bandwidth of a hard drive. So I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. Um, but I think it's going to be for the best, and I think the players that are going to benefit the most from it are the ones that are already on solid states, and then I think the ones that are on hard drives I think will still be okay, but I don't think they'll necessarily be able to have at least the same speed runs that you could potentially have otherwise.
Yeah, it'll be faster definitely than PS3, Xbox One, but it's not going to be like on the same level as PC and PS5s and all that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned
So,
that. Well, here's the thing,
yep,
though.
no,
It's funny you mentioned that because even on the PS4, right? So without getting too over technical, the PS4 and the Xbox One used the SATA 2 memory controller. SATA 2 has a max memory bandwidth of 3 gigabits per second. And in a lot of low resolution games, that is more than enough to basically stream in assets very quickly. But to be fair, um, if you look at reviews done, when you switch out a hard drive with a solid state inside a PlayStation 4, the load times are significantly different, but it still takes about 30 to 40 seconds to load in even some of the more graphically intensive games like God of War.
mhm.
So, so sometimes it can be easy to forget that your own hardware, without intending to be so, can be the real bottleneck. And that's where the new generation consoles, I think, are going to just absolutely dominate. I also think that's
Yeah,
where the current generations of motherboards are going to dominate. Because even if you're on SATA, you're at least on SATA 3, and SATA 3 is capable of 6 gigabit per second load speeds maximum. So, which in effect means that your load times are cut down even more. So, a game that might take you 30 to 40 seconds on SATA 2, in theory, you could probably knock it as low as 8 seconds on a SATA 3 controller, in theory.
mhm.
So, now to be fair though, out of the two new consoles, the PS5 is, from what I've seen from just a hardware side, the PS5 is probably going to be the one that's going to have better asset streaming because of the way they customize the memory controller on it.
Yeah,
It'll behave, from what I'm understanding, it's going to be similar to like having an M.2, but with the ability to stream in assets faster because it can borrow from the GPU's memory if it needs to.
right. Yeah, yeah. I remember. It's like the PS5 is faster, but the Xbox One or X is stronger. And yeah,
Yeah, the Xbox Series X is technically got better compute units in a way, but when you really get down to load times as well as the ability to stream assets in quickly and latency for storage, the PS5 I think is really going to do a better job running circles around because of how they balance that custom controller.
yeah,
So I don't know how that's going to look for Mass Effect, but I think it's definitely going to make enough of a difference that once they especially get that second SSD slot enabled on the PS5, I think really people will start to see the difference after a while, and they'll be like, "Gee, this is really snappy. Maybe this is actually a good idea for me to go on to that. Maybe if they're on a PS4, right?" So I don't know how that's going to look. Um, but again, that's going to be for another podcast that I'll do that technical um, stuff in more detail. But my main focus was just how would it relate to the Mass Effect experience, and I think in this particular case you'll have much faster loading times for sure, but I think you'll also have assets streaming in better, especially if you're on an M.2, which means you won't have the choppy textures that you used to get with like the Unreal Engine and such. So which means that the potential of a character or a object in the environment glitching should be much lower. So I don't know. We'll see how that works out. Um, Now, on the next part, he says, the sacrifice scene has new cutscenes added to show the fates of the squad members from their perspective. You are also able to start romances earlier, and if you are romancing the one who was not left behind, there is an added moment after that with that particular love interest. I was told it's one of the few moments where Shepard is vulnerable, which I find interesting that they were wanting to go that route. Um, because in the entire trilogy, there's only like a handful of moments, like literally, I can count them on one hand, where Shepard actually is open and honest about what his feelings are for whatever's up and coming. And I think most of those moments involve. The first one involves, I think, the suicide mission in Mass Effect 2, and I think the second, and then I think some of the other moments listed involve when Shepard is leaving Earth, and how confident does he feel about his abilities to gather allies. So I'm kind of curious. So I'm going to start with you, Muscles. But what do you think of that from a character development perspective?
I'm down with any additional character development. You know, additional depth doesn't really hurt.
Okay.
I don't have much input on it. More here for the gameplay.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
Point me in a direction and tell me to blow shit up.
Well, I think that was kind of more of the intent behind a lot of the Mass Effect stuff. What about you, Funny? What do you think of a small scene like that happening with Shepard?
A small what?
Like a small scene where he basically opens himself up more and he's more vulnerable, if you will.
Like, talk about his feelings?
Well, yeah, in this particular case, like they were saying, it's one of the few moments where Shepard is vulnerable.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one.
So I have another thing to add. Actually, this just popped into my head. I think it's more important. So, like the thing that you said about Saren's backstory, that's way more important than this, because this being a role playing game, the character development of your character is on you, and like this is, I mean, to me, it's kind of inconsequential. Like, sure, like, okay, it's my dude though. Like, I'm at the wheel. Tell me more details about who I'm facing.
You do bring up a point.
Yeah, I actually really agree with that. Is like when I play a role playing game, I want it to be my character. Like, I love when the more choices I have for my character, I decide how they act. Like when you get those like forced choices, like is my character really this open? Like
Yeah, I think was melodic that you brought up. We were talking about Cyberpunk, how in the car with Jackie after the heist, like your only reactions to him are all angry reactions. Like you're only ever there's like 2 or 3 dialogue options, and they're all like, "What the hell, Jackie?" When the guy's dying right next to you. Spoiler, by the way. Not much of a spoiler. It's pretty early in the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, wait a minute. Why can't I get more options than that? Why can't I, like, trying to console the guy? Why am I yelling at a dying man?
Yeah, I admit that was one of I think a total of 3 places that come to mind in Cyberpunk where I really felt like that character dialogue choice for a very sensitive situation was just not really good, because I get that they're trying to push the idea across that this is an area where your main character is going to feel like a piece of garbage because everything that he just tried to work for all of a sudden is going to hell in a handbasket. But
Yeah.
not everybody is going to have the same gut reaction, and I know you can't always account for that. My guess is that probably the reason why that went through again is because probably when they were doing the quality testing, that was probably the gut reaction that the quality testers had when they were showcasing that scene, more than likely. And
Okay.
more than likely they had to go off what they were saying their gut reaction was, when in fact, and this is something that's talked about in that Broken Silicon podcast. Again, I'll have it in the link in the description. Sometimes what a quality tester might react with sometimes is not always what the players in general might react with. Because my gut reaction was the fact that basically your homie is dying next to you, you're just like you get a sense of like shock and awe, like maybe not awe, shock definitely, and disappointment, knowing that Jackie is going to be leaving you shortly, and you will not have, basically, in my opinion, one of the best game companions across any title ever to not be at your side as you're going through all those other missions.
Yeah. Yes, it kind of twists the blade so that if you see him again or any other interaction with his family after that point, it makes it even more painful.
Yeah, exactly. It does. And I mean, I'm not one usually to be affected by that sort of thing because I tend to run with the mentality that I know I'm playing a game. But they did a good enough job on Jackie's character in terms of being able to relate to him, that, like you were saying, if you talk to him when they're having the ofrendo for Jackie, I got to admit, I had a few heartstring tuggers there myself, and I was just like, damn.
Yep. If I had tear ducts, maybe they would function at that moment.
Right? Oh, me. But I think that's definitely something that if they do it right with this Mass Effect remake / remaster, I could see that vulnerability moment kind of adding a layer of emotional depth to Shepard that maybe you don't see in a lot of Mass Effect 1. But I don't know. The only thing we can do is wait it out and see what happens.
Yeah. I think it might have been why people resonated more or enjoyed the FemShep a little bit more than the male. I think maybe the male seemed more of like a board, and the female one had a little bit more emotion in her voice acting. So credit to Jennifer Hale, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, because Mark Mir, he's a very good voice actor, but I think he did the lines the way he did them because that was kind of the style he wanted to go for.
Yeah.
But for the type of animation he was dealing with, it doesn't always match up accordingly. But I'm hoping that's one thing that they, be able to fix when they're doing the Frostbite engine, is have the facial animations match up much better with the characters' emotions. So yeah, so we'll see where that goes. But I do have good news. So according to him in the next line, he says, Bring Down the Sky and Pinnacle Station are included in the remaster as the base game and not DLC. Thank you. Because I cannot count the number of times that I've seen a game get remastered. And if it had DLC in the original game, they still keep it as DLC instead of including it with the base game, so you're still having to pay for a separate package almost.
Looking at you, Activision, you bastards.
Yeah, this this actually kind of took me by surprise because it's EA, right?
Yeah.
And they really love their DLC. They want to make as much money off of every title as they possibly can. So when I saw this, wow, that's really unlike them.
It is, because from what I understand, BioWare is being given more room to breathe on this project as well as the next Dragon Age and the next Mass Effect. Because as most of you know, when Anthem failed, that was and the new leadership came into EA, everybody knew right then and there that unless something was done to fix the issue quickly, EA was going to be in some serious hot water. Like, the financial loss they took in 2018 alone was in the billions of dollars. I'll just put that out there real quick. And shareholdings went from, like, I think in 2017 being close to like $104 or something like that. It plummeted all the way down to $14 a share by the end of 2018.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, it was bad. So what, and this is the reason why BioWare could get off the ground with these projects, is because EA knew they were in big trouble, and BioWare has been their only company that has had any consistency whatsoever apart from their EA Games, sports franchise. But they couldn't rely on that because that alone just doesn't generate enough revenue to make up the difference for, market loss. So they basically, my understanding was they had a board meeting about it, and it was during that board meeting that somebody said that there were some ideas being tossed around at BioWare. So they basically had a private interview / meeting with Casey Hudson about the situation, and my understanding is that Mac Walters and Casey Hudson presented their idea, and then basically they continued talks with one of the other guys at BioWare as sort of the mediator, and basically EA decided to take a gamble, and they basically gave a huge, and I mean an absolutely huge, budget package to BioWare, from what I understand, which was why BioWare was able to buy that new headquarters, and as well as be able to do this Legendary Edition, and also work on a new Dragon Age and work on a new Mass Effect, because it was sort of a wake up and smell the coffee moment, and EA said, okay, yeah, we need to take this more seriously. So BioWare is being used as sort of a rebirth, if you will, of EA.
Sounds good to me, man.
I know. So, which I think has been a good thing. And EA's been more hands-off on games recently, which has been good. And from what I'm understanding, it's going to continue to be that way, especially with some of the new executives they had come in recently, over the last year in particular. If you want to find out more information about that, I would highly recommend look at earning calls and such, because that's where they made a lot of those types of announcements. But let's go ahead and try to wrap up the first Mass Effect.
Yeah.
So hub areas are more lively. On the Citadel, there is more NPC interactions, ambient conversations, and the club's C-section in certain areas of the Presidium are also completely redesigned to give it a fresh look and feel. Holly frickin' Luya, because I'm telling you, it was so weird walking around in the Presidium.
Yeah, it felt really empty. I thought this place was supposed to be populated.
You know what though?
What?
Like, no matter how much I played the first Mass Effect, I still did not know where anything was in the hub world.
Oh, that's just because you have a terrible sense of direction.
Ooh.
That could be true.
Roasted and toasted.
Your face.
Yeah, that could be part of it, but I'm going to be honest. Sometimes a game's depth can help steer direction as well as velocity a little bit, and momentum. And I have to admit, with the way they designed the hubs and such, it kind of made it feel a little stale. So, especially if you wanted to have a feeling of where your own momentum was taking you, it was just really hard to follow sometimes, especially when you got into some of those heavier duty missions.
I'll tell you what, here's one thing to hope for, that they actually put a little bit of like a navigation system in there so you don't get lost, or put in a good interactive map when you're down there, or just on any of the areas, so you can navigate easier.
Yeah, and I have to admit, that's where Andromeda and Mass Effect 3, I think, did the best, is their navigation system, as well as their points of interest and nav points were set up way better overall. So, yeah. But the one thing I'm also liking is the fact that you're going to have more NPC interaction, more background stuff basically going on to kind of fill the void of and the emptiness of the background that existed in the first one.
And they should put more of those little keepers in the game.
They probably will, to be honest, if I know these guys well enough.
Or even even if they're not right up in front, make it like a little Easter egg, like off in the distance. Because if they're going to have that draw distance in the game, the Citadel is definitely the place to put that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It definitely would be.
Yeah, it's like a Halo, but it's a longer tube, you know.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad way of putting it. So, but at the very least, it doesn't feel like you're taking forever and a day to get to the end.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that covers Mass Effect 1. God almighty. All right. So, now that we're all back, let's go ahead and head into Mass Effect 2. This one's going to be a little bit more short because there's not as much change that's on this one, because a lot of the change is going to be consistent between 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to certain things like the galaxy map and such. So that way we don't have to cover nearly as much ground, which is nice. So, alright, so first thing, major graphical and gameplay changes like Mass Effect 1. Gameplay is more in line with Andromeda fluidity, but instead of the robust weapon and armor system in the game, it is more streamlined like Mass Effect 3. So, in other words, the armor and weapon system that's in Mass Effect 2 pretty much is not going to exist. It's just going to be like Mass Effect 3 armor and weapons. So, take that as you will. So then in the next line he says, character models are noticeably improved from the Mass Effect 1 remaster. Graphically, it's still on par with Dragon Age Inquisition overall. Planet scanning is back, but improved and more in line with Mass Effect 3 than the original Mass Effect 2 game. They have added more to the hub worlds instead of giving planets to explore. The Presidium and wards from Mass Effect 1, get this, have been added with obvious environmental changes from the aftermath of Mass Effect 1.
Good. Well, I want that continuity.
I do too, because that's the one thing I always didn't understand was why in the world did they always make the background, especially of the Presidium, the way they did, that just didn't reflect what the Presidium would have looked like at that time after the Battle of Saren. Because remember, it only had been 2 years. Yeah.
I was like, how fast do those keepers actually work? Because every time you see them, they're snails.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you almost had to wonder at that point.
They work faster than not being observed.
Oh, you're a robot.
Wait a minute. Hold on, Ghost. Try that one more time.
He got reapered.
Harbinger has arrived at his doorstep.
Am I back? Am I alive?
Yes,
Yeah.
you're back.
You're human again.
I was just
Assuming
gonna make
direct control.
Right?
Well, I won't deny that one. No.
But what were you trying to say, Ghost?
I was just gonna make a joke, but it's too late now.
Your
My
joke-
roboticness already became the joke.
Oh no! I stole the spotlight.
Darn
It really did.
See, the Reapers are destructive even in the real world.
Those bastards.
Yep, they're already here.
Yeah, alright, that's it. Let me go ahead and get my thermal clip out and I'll reload my weapons and let's go for it.
Is that the red light I was seeing earlier? Okay.
Actually, funny you should mention a red light. So, I just got a power bank today. That's over 26,000 milliamps, and I'm using that to power the LEDs on my chair.
Your chair has lights.
Yes.
Whatever.
You were middle school.
You know what? I've got a bunch of Corsair stuff, and honestly, if I could link up my chair, if my chair had lights, I'd want to link up with all my Corsair stuff so that everything turned color in sync.
Well, you do know.
So you know what? That'd be really cool.
You do know they make RGB chairs, right?
Yeah, but I'm not going to shell out for a chair that has lights on it. I'm sitting on it. I'm not looking at it.
Fair enough.
I don't have eyes in the back of my ass.
Well, I mean, the only time it would look cool anyway.
You don't?
Oh, wow. Wow.
If you're streaming, right?
Yeah.
That would be the thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And trust me, Ghost, he doesn't have eyes in the back of his head.
How would you know?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the back of his head?
Actually, yes, and the photos on his Instagram account.
Well, maybe
Is the
he's
back of my
hiding
head
it.
on there?
In a couple of them, yes.
Oh, yeah, and it's shaved too.
Uh-huh.
Oh, hey, Melodic.
Yeah.
Off topic, but I want to send you a link to a Amazon product, and I want to know if it's worth the price. Okay.
All right. Yep. We could talk about that later. So, just DM me now, so that way we'll get to it afterwards.
And that's
Hello.
Uncle Muscle 21 on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Which also, by the way, too. Yeah.
It's Cmad on Instagram, by the way.
Yeah.
ITS Cmad.
So.
Actually, no. It's Cmad PV. Sorry.
No, it's all good. When we get done with this podcast, I'm gonna put links in the description. God Almighty, my description is gonna be full of links and credits and. Oh my God.
Okay, you'll be fine.
Prioritize it.
I
Prioritize
doubt
it.
it'll
Okay.
be as much as
Sure.
like the explaining series. Holy God!
So you only need to list funny this one time because he's not ever coming back.
Oh,
Why not?
Oh,
Why not?
wow. Man,
I'm amazing.
man, funny. You're getting thrown under the bus by muscles tonight.
I thought Ghost was the punching bag.
Apparently not. Apparently you're next in line.
That's not good.
That's only I allowed it that day. Okay.
Only because you allowed it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair enough.
I
Alright.
decided to be nice.
All right. Well, we're getting way off topic here, so let's get back to it because this it's like we turned it to like I don't know if any of you are aware or sorry, wrong word. Remember like when you're growing up, for those of us that weren't homeschooled, which I was not one of them, unfortunately, but fortunately, do you all remember how like you could be outside and you'd be talking with friends about random crap like that? And you just never stayed on one conversation. It was like as if your brain would go everywhere.
Yeah, tangents.
Yeah.
My brain goes everywhere today.
We know.
I know.
Wow. Oof. This is turning into a big oof. All right. Well, on to the next line before poor Funny's reputation is totally thrown into the toilet.
I'm the greatest.
So basically environmental changes from the aftermath of Mass Effect 1, parts of Omega that was cut from the base game have been added to the remaster. And thank goodness, because I have to admit, that's the one thing I never understood is why the heck did they limit where you could go in Omega?
I don't know. What's up with that?
Because don't you remember that there were certain doors that were only available during certain missions, and that once you did those missions, the doors would never open again?
Yeah, that kind of disappointed me.
Yeah, because
I want to go back and look at my work.
well, yeah, because you want to see if there's any aftermath in there or not.
Yeah, and that adds depth to any RPG. Really, being able to return to the scene of the crime. Maybe not in every case is it a crime, but to see what your work has done.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and I think that'll definitely be something a lot of the fans could appreciate for sure. The good news is all of the DLC from the base game has been added into the remaster, which, to be honest, I think out of all of the Mass Effect games, Mass Effect 2 had the most DLC, so that's going to be really helpful having that in there.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's see here. Next line says cut quest and content have been re-added. Also been told they have made the game more oh god, not this topic. I have to talk about this because this is something that needs to be made aware. They have made the game more adult, as in certain romance scenes environments are no longer strategically non-nude. And if you romance Caden or Ashley from the first game, there's extra content with those characters later in the epilogue of the game.
Boobs!
Yeah, basically.
Do I get to see Holly's boobs now?
Boobies!
Alien boobies?
Yeah, pretty much. There'll definitely be more boobs. I can confirm, but
Boobs are good.
but I swear to God, if I see the dildos just in those scenes, then I'm done. I'm absolutely freaking done.
Yeah, which of the characters do you think is more into that kinky
This just
shit?
got rated bar really quick.
I know, right? Wait.
More PG-13 than anything, but
Yeah.
still slightly R.
Yeah. So what were you asking, Muscles?
PG-15.
Oh, it's real lowbrow topic, but which of the characters of your romance options you think is the most kinky?
Oh God, I don't even know in the Mass Effect trilogy.
Yeoman.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It would have been
Yeoman Chambers is her name? Chambers?
Yeah,
Kelly Chambers.
Yeah, Kelly Chambers. Yeah, she was the one that cracked a little bit of I think in terms of jokes, compared to like the rest of the crew. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to think which of the characters also would make those kind of jokes on. Oh, Morden. Morden also made those kind of jokes, but from like a big brain science perspective. So you almost have to wonder if Morden would only be interested in the fact that he could possibly dissect it.
I love that. Morden, right? He's the buggy guy, right?
Yeah.
He was. He had like a musical background.
Yep. Do you know to this day that his operatic tune that he made up is actually still one of the most requested lines from Mass Effect franchise entirely?
It's awesome.
Yeah. When they put it in.
Gilbert and Sullivan?
Yep, Gilbert and Sullivan, you're correct. Yeah, he did his own parody of it, and to this day it's still one of the most loved moments of the entire Mass Effect franchise.
Good for him.
Yeah. So, and what's funny is he actually did his own rendition of it again during the cast reunion they had on In 7 Days. So that was pretty funny to watch. And Jennifer Hale was like, "Well, it's about flipping time. Somebody requested. We've been waiting for over 5 years."
Very good. Back to Kelly Chambers. Like the whole rank of yeoman is totally like a play on old Kirk age Star Trek, where
Yeah.
he had a yeoman, and a yeoman for him was basically just his secretary, like a starship secretary, and they were always like wearing the short skirts and stuff. And
Correct.
in the Kirk age, that was his big thing. He was totally a womanizer.
Yeah, basically. But in this particular one, she acts as more of like your psychologist, really. That
Yeah, they had to
profiles.
enhance it a little bit so it wasn't so blaringly obvious that she exists only just to like get you coffee and do paperwork and get dicked.
Yeah, and then also profile everybody under the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was kind of an interesting role they had her play, and I'm still to this day not sure how I feel about it. I don't know, but
you get to save her in the end. If you don't, she melts into goo.
yeah, that's true. That was interesting when I found that out, and I'm like, oh, okay, well now I know what I need to do to change that up. So
Yeah. My playthrough, I made sure I did I'm a completionist.
same here.
So yeah, so everybody survived.
Yep, same here. So yeah. So let's go ahead and head to the next line. After you complete, so this is where it gets really good. So after you complete Arrival, which only activates after you beat the main quest, they have added the extra content of Shepard turning herself into the Alliance.
That's good. That's another continuity thing. It's great.
Yeah.
You got a trilogy. There's got to be transitional things in between.
Yeah.
Whereas before, they came out in in their separate years or whatever gap of time that they came out in. So you don't really think about those things. But now, are these all getting released all at the same time?
Yeah, it's going to be released as a big package.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll play it start to finish. So you need that continuity pieces in between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm. I do agree, because that's the one thing.
So it's not just a hard line.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that I got to admit I wasn't too impressed with was how, they have that end cutscene after you complete the suicide mission, where it shows the Reapers coming into focus, and heading towards the Milky Way, and
yeah,
it just always. It literally cuts off right there, then goes to the credits, and then the next time you see anything is when Shepard has been basically under house arrest, and then he's supposed to go answer to Earth's council, and it's like,
yep,
it's like what happened in between, because like they talk about it a little in Mass Effect 3, but they never really give you any substance to chew on.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of left a lot of gap.
Hey, where's my ship? Where's my crew? What's going on here? Why am I suddenly here? What happened to everybody? I want to get all these people back now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm assuming you had a very similar experience there, Funny?
With what?
With the ending of Mass Effect 2 going into the beginning of Mass Effect 3, like the transition of, where they killed it, like right when it shows the Reapers coming to the Milky Way, and then you don't see anything again until you start Mass Effect 3 and you're being questioned by the Council, basically.
It's weird. Like, I barely remember the end of Mass Effect 2, but all I remember was battling the collectors in that black hole area or something.
It was a dying star, but yeah.
Yeah, a dying star. That was a fun mission.
But see, that's what I'm saying, is that like it was just so underwhelming that it just really didn't make a difference at all.
Yeah. I liked their take on how the twist was that their base was at the galactic core, you know, and it's like, wait, what's there? It's so dense, it's all chaotic, you know.
That was pretty cool.
Astrophysics wise, you know, it's wild in there. So yeah, you're next to a dying star. You know, everything's broken up. Like, what the hell's going on down here?
Yeah.
Yeah, astrophysicists would have a field day with that, I bet.
Oh, absolutely. So that's why, if I can, there's a friend of mine who's actually working towards being a rocket engineer, and he's going to work on the design of some of the next generations of NASA rocket engines. So I definitely want to hear his input on that. But that'll be for another time. So yeah,
I'll definitely listen to that.
right. There is one last line in Mass Effect 2 that he covers. It says, it's during this epilogue that you can interact with Kaidan or Ashley briefly. Oh, I'm not unless you're romancing them, I don't really see that as being effective.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think I usually romance somebody else for that.
Even as female Shepard, I could never do Kaidan. I am sorry. If there's one character in that game I cannot stand, it's Kaidan. I can't.
Yeah.
I never liked Caden's design. Like, he always looked like just some generic NPC that you would see just hanging out in an open area or something.
He was a frickin' mama's boy is what he was.
Maybe a little bit.
No, I mean seriously, because like he's way more emotional than a lot of other guys, and it was just stupid weird because it's like, I mean, what guy do you know is going to be that emotional unless he's a mama's boy?
Like, I never liked him either. Like, when it came time to kill him or Ashley, I did not hesitate to kill him.
I'm with you there, buddy. I'm with you there. Because at least with Ashley, it's like, oh, okay, she's coming more from the side of a woman, so we'll give her a little room and space. You know, this is the behavior that would come out of Kaidan half the time is something you just don't normally expect from a guy.
He always pissed me off.
Well, I'm glad to hear I'm in good company.
I think I usually romance Liara. And there was one time I actually went with Tally. That was an interesting one. And then that arc actually really pays off in the end.
Oh, yeah.
I romanced Ashley and damn it, you just said her name. Tali.
Tally.
Tally Zora, yeah.
Yeah, she is my space boo.
Space waifu.
Yeah, space waifu.
Well, to be fair, out of all the romances in the entire Mass Effect series, the two that usually get the most popularity are, in fact, Tali and Garrus.
Yeah, with Tally, it's that nervous awkwardness that's just absolutely adorable.
Yeah, she's like all shy and like it's pretty cute.
Yeah, exactly. She makes herself very easy to feel relatable to, right? To an extent, if you're especially an introvert. But she's very intelligent, which more than makes up for it. And then you have Garrus on the other side of the coin, which is a guy who questions everything, but is the biggest badass to walk the universe since Rambo.
Yeah. That was like my bro the entire way through.
Mine too. He is space Rambo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you go to get him in 2, and he's doing his whole like lone wolf thing at that moment, and you'll bail him out. Like, fuck yeah, this guy's awesome.
I know, right?
And he had a crew, and they all got killed, right? And it was just him holding off by himself.
My favorite character in the second game was I forgot his name, but he's that green alien thing.
Fang.
Huh?
Fang.
Yeah, he was
Krios.
my favorite character. I loved him.
Yeah, because he has a calm demeanor, which is something you don't see in Mass Effect very often.
Yeah, like he's a killer, but he's calm about it.
The perfect memory feature of his is really intriguing.
Yeah.
Wasn't he a DLC character or some pre-order bonus or something?
I don't think so.
No, he was part of the base game, but if you wanted to do his loyalty mission a lot faster, it did help to have some of the DLC.
Who
Oh, yeah.
was the DLC character? It was like that mercenary dude, right?
Oh yeah, wasn't he in the third one, the DLC character? I
No,
forgot his name.
no, you guys are thinking of Zaid. Zaid was part of the base
Yeah.
game. No, the DLC character was Katsumi, the Master Thief.
Right.
Sue me.
Yeah, the Japanese Master Thief.
I need
She
to
was wear a hood.
replay those games again.
Yeah, she was awesome.
I know. She had a knack for just literally being straightforward and blunt about things, but in a way that you could just laugh your butt off. Yeah, so I don't know. So we'll see how this turns out, because the way they're redoing the ending a little bit is, I think, gonna be more fluid for sure. So anyway, that
Yeah,
is
Thane.
yeah, Thane. You're gonna be obsessed with Thane, aren't you?
Oh, okay. I found the character. Javik, whatever his name
Oh,
is. I think-
Javik. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
him.
three,
That's
right?
the one that I was talking about.
Yeah, the only
He
living
was the
Prothean.
Prothean.
Yeah, that DLC character.
Okay, yeah. No, that one you get in Mass Effect 3. Yeah, so and on that note, let's go ahead and end Mass Effect 2, because that's all the footnotes for that. Let's head into Mass Effect 3. So first line, like the previous two games, this one includes major graphical and gameplay changes. Gameplay is in line with Andromeda fluidity, but keeps the core Mass Effect 3 inventory system. Thank the Lord above. So you're not lost in the noise.
You're welcome.
Funny?
Yes.
Did you just pull a funny?
What you said? Thank the Lord above, so I just welcomed you.
Wait, how are you the Lord above?
Yeah, that's my job.
Let's move on.
You goofballs! Shush! See, this is what I'm talking about.
I'm.
Let's just pull a shepherd and just say, I should go.
I should go. I should go. I love it. I should go. All right. Anyway, line number 2. You get to play an extremely brief prologue as Admiral Anderson prior to the Reaper invasion. I'm going to pause right there. Did you know that in the original Mass Effect 3 game, there is only one time that you can play as Admiral Anderson?
What
Was there? I don't know.
is that at the end?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But what has to happen is your war assets have to be at 50%, and you have to do so bad with the game that Shepard gets killed by the Reaper guarding the portal to the Citadel. And then
I need to try that.
Yeah, so which means that basically Anderson takes over. Or no, he doesn't get killed by the Reaper. I'm sorry. Shepard does make it up into the Citadel that's being guarded by the Reaper, and that's right. But he's so badly injured from the Reaper attack that it's Anderson who ends up living instead of Shepard.
Is that the first game?
What?
No, what? Third. What are you
the,
doing?
That's the end of the third game.
Oh.
Yeah, you remember the scene where Shepard is rushing the Reaper along with a bunch of other troops, and they're trying to make it to the portal that goes up into the Citadel that's got its arms closed?
I think so.
Okay, so when you get on there and you travel to the Citadel's core, then when you get to the core, the Elusive Man is there. And Shepard's injuries are so bad that by the time you finish the conversation with the Elusive Man, that it's Shepard who ends up dying and not Anderson. But again,
Damn.
yeah, but
Yeah, I never knew about that. That's really interesting.
yeah,
Me either.
it's a
I've never been so bad at a game that I need to get like a different character to fill in for me.
Same.
yeah, but that was something that wasn't really well known, and I think to this day is kind of not even thought about too much by most fans. But it's nice that they now have Anderson in a playable role now, where he's actually doing something that helps kind of connect the dots, if you will, on the story on the one side, but on the other side, you get to see him in his more physical peak, if you will.
That's good. You know, any character voiced by Keith David deserves a little bit of action.
I know, right?
Yeah, all of what was it, Modern Warfare 2, where he's yelling at you the entire time. Ramirez, do everything.
Oh boy, Foley, kind of a dick, but also my boy.
Ramirez, get to Burger Town.
Ramirez, go kill that whole army.
Ramirez, get your thumb out of your ass. You're gonna get run over.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, because that's how they treated his character in Modern Warfare 2. I mean, admittedly, just from a voice acting perspective, he's definitely one of the more unique voice actors, and why he doesn't get better roles, I don't know. But it's whatever.
Yeah.
So.
He's got a long career, a lot of acting credits to him for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, so kind of moving into the next part of that line. So you have that little thing with Anderson, but then it says this allows players to see a little bit of Earth prior to its destruction, which was a major complaint from the original release.
Definitely going to help with making you actually feel for losing Earth. You know, it's like, you know, during the game, it's like you see it as it's getting destroyed. You don't see what it was before. You know, helps you.
I'd also just love to see the development of Earth.
Oh yeah, that too.
See how it's
what's futuristic Earth
in the age. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, it's like
right.
In 100
you only
years,
see the area that you're in. Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm curious. Because in previous games, they talk about how, in all the lore, they're like, yeah, humans are super young in comparison to the rest of the galaxy. Mm-hmm. You know, what's going on? Everybody else has been, you know, using the mass spec drives for so long, and you guys just came out of nowhere, like Cthulhian type of entrance into the galaxy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to see like a technological boom and the progress of Earth would be really interesting to me.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you raise a good point with that.
Yeah. Why, thank you.
Well, and I do wholeheartedly agree on those points. So I'm kind of curious to see how the player base is going to react, but I think that was definitely a good thumbs up on their part to at least start Mass Effect 3 off on a better note. So third line, he starts off by saying, looks similar to Mass Effect 2 remastered graphically. Character models might have some incremental improvements, but unless you view them side by side, it's hard to tell. And I kind of expected that, because honestly, you're kind of maxing out the graphics in terms of like what they're capable of on the Frostbite 3 engine. Like the prettiest you're going to get is what they had with Battlefield 5, and that's really about it.
Yeah, I'm not about to start pulling up side-by-side comparisons. I'm just going to enjoy the damn game.
Right?
Like, it's poking at things like, well, their eyes are different sizes. Come on, pull your thumb out of your ass.
As long as they're not potatoes, it's fine.
Me too. Like, whenever a new console comes out, and there's some kind of remaster, they like show the graphic comparisons on the PC and the console, and I'm just looking at it like I don't see a difference.
Yeah, come on, give your balls a tug.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why when C and I do our tech podcast, I'm gonna be. I have a lot of issues with Nvidia, and that's one of the things I have a big issue with is how Nvidia keeps trying to push this idea that ray tracing. Yes, it is the live ray tracing is the future of lighting. I do agree, but it's not relevant right now. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think ray tracing is going to be too relevant for at least another year or so.
Okay, so that's what we were talking about earlier, how it kind of struggles with some games right now.
Yeah, I mean, because this whole idea that, well, if you turn ray tracing on, you'll notice a difference right away. It's like, that's a load of malarkey. There's only a few.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, to kind of contradict what I just said, if you do side by side, you see a little bit of, you do see some difference. But there are some games when you see it in action. I'm talking about just still photos. So in action, yeah, you can see it fuck up a little bit.
It's like how TV and gaming companies are saying how 4K is the future, but like most of us don't really care about 4K, you know?
Yeah, well, not yet. I think as time goes on, 4K will start to become the new gold standard, just like 1080p was. But I think
Yeah,
my personal opinion is I think we're going to have to get over the hurdle of 1080p 60 frames a second before we get there. And the problem is that a lot of developers are still stuck on the old cycle of 1080p 30 FPS. That trying to get them onto the new standard of 1080p 60 FPS is like pulling teeth with some of them.
Yeah, 30 is whack, dude.
Yeah, because like most console like games are stuck at 30 FPS. I'm just like, it looks so ugly. Why are they doing 30 FPS all the time? And then on the PC, we all get like unlocked frames and stuff. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm playing Call of Duty and my frames drop below 60, I notice and I get
So do
mad.
I. It gets kind of like blurry-ish.
Well, because
Yeah.
when you have frame times like that, they introduce more latency. So you're going to get things like ghosting. You're going to get things like artifacting as being more common. I mean, the whole 9 yards. Because most people don't realize, up until the last 2 years in particular, the movie industry has been the main driver for in terms of what frame rates were capable of doing in videos. Because when movies first came out years and years ago, the so all the way up until about the late 20s, most movies were about, I think it was 14 or 18 frames a second.
And now they're like 24 frames.
Well, no, the 24 frames came with the late 20s when they improved a lot of the filmmaking technology. And so then a lot of the classic comedy teams that we all know and love, that, we're familiar with from that time, like the Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, Martin and Lewis, the Marx Brothers. All of those guys were filming mostly in either 24 frames a second, or if the camera technology allowed for it, 28 frames a second. And then the 30 frames a second didn't even come around until about the 70s. Because if you look at the difference between a recording from the 70s versus a recording from the 80s, it feels a little bit smoother overall. Because that's when they started introducing 30 frames a second into the cameras. Because the type of film they used got more durable. And then 60 frames per second, that was a concept that wasn't introduced until the first gaming desktops. Let me just make that clear.
Yeah, the 80s, so much good they did with that technology. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, they made a few advancements, but it just took the personal PC to finally push 60 frames a second.
In some whack movies.
Yeah.
And now consoles are still stuck at 30 FPS mindset, huh?
I wouldn't say all the new ones, but definitely all the ones that are from PS4 going backwards.
Like the I really hate when a game company has a multi-platform release and they hold back the PC version because they don't want it to make it look too good. So they lock the PC version at 30 FPS, just like its console counterpart, which I hate when they do that.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And Ghost, I can sense you've got some thoughts. What are you thinking?
I enjoy my 30 FPS. Leave us alone. All right, we'll sit in our corner, lagging behind you.
He's the only console person here.
I mean, the only.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Nick. All right.
Yeah, I mean, but to be fair, you're absolutely right, Funny, because when you lock a game like that, I think a good example of that was Horizon Zero Dawn. It was locked at 30 FPS when it was first released for the PlayStation, and it took some really serious dev time and teeth pulling to get it 60 FPS on the PC.
You know what's like what matches my point even more is how they treated the PC version of Dead Rising 3. That thing looks so like ugly and slow on the PC and stuff, and then to this day they still have not unlocked higher frames for the PC version of that game.
Oh yeah.
It pissed me off so much. I'm like, it's a fun game, but I just can't play it. It's so, I don't know. It just looks weird, like slow and not that responsive.
Yeah, and slower frame times means you get less time to respond, and so especially when you're playing these faster paced games, it can really ruin your experience for sure.
Yeah, so I bought it. Then I'm all like, how bad can it be? It can't be as bad as everyone says it is. But I played it and just only played like 2 hours and never really touched it since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very happy with, especially the fact that they're putting it on the Frostbite engine, is because it's not going to be like a locked 30 FPS. It's going to be new gen 1080p 60 FPS for the new consoles, and unless you have the PS Pro or the Xbox One X, you won't be able to get the 1080p 60 FPS unless you have one of those consoles. But I think enough people are on those that it'll definitely make a difference.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we'll see where that goes. All right, on to the next line. Planet and War Asset System returns, but it's easier to manage, and you cannot unlock asset quests until you reach certain points in the game.
Easier to manage. I didn't have trouble with it before. Okay.
I think it's because it depended on who you were. Because the problem is, if you wanted a full grasp on how well off your asset system was, getting to it in the menu, I think, was the challenging part. But in terms of how it was affecting your overall style and gameplay, it really wasn't making too much of a difference. But I don't know. To me, that's a feature that's neither here or there. Just make it easy to get to in the menus. That's all I ask.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Can get on board with that.
Yeah. So like the previous two games, they have added more to the hubs. Okay, so that's good.
Yippee!
All of the DLC from the base game has been added to the remaster and are considered main quest, so you can't miss them.
Yippee.
Right? Some cut content has also been included, about 5 hours worth. Also, something else that is new. If you play as female shepherd... Freaking nuts. I can't believe I'm going to read this next
Yes.
Hold on.
Read it.
Hold on. If you play as female shepherd, you can also sleep with Arya after the Omega mission, as long as you're not currently in a relationship with anyone else. Apparently, Arya doesn't like that. That's that's I'm not even touching that one because that's gonna get weird real quick.
We're just gonna not go into that, okay?
Yeah.
One of my playthroughs.
Why
I'm
not? It's a
gonna
feature in the
hide
game.
Yeah,
Man,
come on.
you gotta explore. I mean, I thought you were a completionist. I thought you had to do this stuff too, right? Come
We
on.
must discuss.
Oh god.
Don't you want to get that trophy, that achievement? I know I do.
I mean, platinum trophies. I'm starting to collect them. Ghost of Tsushima, Mass Effect 3.
Oh, God Almighty, Lord help us.
Giggity.
I can't top you, my child.
Oh, dear. Well, let me just read the next line. Like the Mass Effect 2 remaster, they have made the game more adult, as in certain romance scenes, environments are strategically non-nude, which I kind of expected. So it's just basically, in other words, the limits that were there previously have now been removed, and yeah, more boobs, basically.
Bring on the boobies.
Boobs.
Well, so now I've got to wonder, what is that going to look like in a tally romance scene, right?
Yes.
Blue nipples, probably.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mass Effect.
She just has to wear a
Mass
mask and she'll be
Effect-
fine.
Shut up, muscles.
Oh, no. They say certain romances. Not all romances.
Well, that's true, and so does make me wonder if they're going to keep some of those the
So,
same as they did previously. Like,
yeah, it'll probably be more like Vetra from Andromeda, where it's like, not sexual. It's just, it's just like, little kiss on the lips. That's it.
yeah, kind of ish. I don't know. We'll see. Well, anyway, let me get to the next line. They have also added a bit more to the ending of the game. Any romance interest you have, assuming they are still alive, will be able to have a physical, in-person goodbye with Shepard before the final mission. And to be fair, I like that a lot better. I didn't like it the way they did it previously, where the only ones who got that were the ones that you dropped in with when you were playing Mass Effect 3. Any of the ones from Mass Effect 2 didn't get a in-person goodbye.
Yeah, like where are they? Just sitting on a bench somewhere.
Or off in another, field of battle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you only had the comms link to talk to them. Ending has not been changed in any capacity. However, some of the cut content is more towards the end of the game. Alright, I'm going to make a quick statement on this. This is going to be a little controversial, I think, for a lot of people. But when I had last checked with my source about this, he said that there was a chance that because there's a lot more new staff who have been longtime fans of the franchise involved, that there was a big push by a lot of programmers and developers to try to create a good ending where Shepard lives. And since a lot of the management is still old guard, they really didn't want to change that. And as of October, the understanding I had was it was in a bit of a toss-up as to whether or not they would go forward with, basically catering to fans and giving a good ending, or sticking to their guns and staying with the original ending.
Unpopular opinion, but me and my friend, we never had a problem with the original ending of Mass Effect 3.
That's interesting.
I know.
Why would that be? Because for most people who play through the entire trilogy, the ending of 3 was such a big disappointment because with the options you had at your disposal, it made it feel like everything you had done up to that point literally meant nothing for your character.
I don't know. Like, it's weird because I'm supposed to hate the ending, but like, I never did. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know.
Do you think maybe it's because you find the idea of somebody willing to sacrifice themselves to save, in this case, an entire galaxy, a little bit noble, that at least on an emotional level you can feel somewhat of a connection to it?
Maybe. I think the choice I did was um I think I destroyed all robot life or something to get rid of all the Reapers. I think that's what I chose back then. I haven't played the updated ending on that DLC yet. Still, after all these years.
The expanded content, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet.
Okay, yeah, because if you played that, you actually do get a ending that's somewhat decent, which does solve the overall problem not only of the Reapers but also of the of all the division that's amongst the different civilizations, and that is basically a form of synthetic and organic basically mixing together on even the genetic level. It's really hard to explain. Just look that ending up when you get a chance.
Yeah, that one really favors the Geth, right?
Yeah, it's one of the few where the Geth actually get a bright future as well as give a bright future to everybody involved, basically. So, I don't know. To be honest, I just really felt like they just could have provided an ending where it's like, hey, you can have Shepard live because there's another option that you can unlock if you do this mission earlier on in Mass Effect 3. But why they didn't do that, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly felt like if they had done that, I think the ending would have sat better with a lot of people.
Shepard gets to live if you 100% every single game. All three of them. There you go.
Ooh.
That'd be terrible for me because I'm not a completionist. I would have been like, God damn it.
Dude, I do it.
I'll be comfortable with it.
I would.
Good.
I mean, I would be comfortable with it too, but you know that would actually showcase the difference between those who are the hardcore fans and those who are just mainly playing it for fun.
Yeah.
Interesting. That is a. I never thought about
Yeah.
that.
Bring back hard games, please.
Yeah. Also, guys, the game researcher does talk about why hard games have been something of a struggle over the last 10 years in particular.
Speak. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So, if you want to, again, learn more about that, I will have that Broken Silicon episode linked in the description.
I was gonna say like the reason why hard games are dying out because like all these newer gamers like they grew up with games pretty much holding their hands, and when something hard comes out, they don't want to play it.
Actually, so surveys that I've seen disagree with you on that one. It's actually has more to do with the way they test it.
I actually have a thing about hard games. For me, there's two different type of hard games. There's fun hard and there's just stupid hard. Stupid hard is where the game is hard just to be hard for no reason. Fun hard is where it's challenging, but it's still possible. Where it's like you actually feel while like when it's just stupid hard, it's just like this is hard for no reason. There's no point for this to be this hard.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like the difference between Ninja Gaiden and Dark Souls.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, because with hard games, there has to be some balance. You know, like you can't make it too hard where it's not fun because that shit pisses everyone off.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mhm.
And again,
Fun hard, Doom.
Yeah, Doom. That is a good example of fun hard.
Doom, Dark Souls is fun hard. It's just like you just gotta have memory and know
well,
how to.
I never
Exactly. A Dark Souls, death is an active mechanic in the game where it's like it's necessary.
You learn from your deaths. You're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now I know how to do that. Now I know to do this.
Right, and some things. I mean, I haven't played through them myself, but sometimes you actually need to be like have no souls or something like that in order to complete certain features. Right.
Well, it's just like, first time you run into a mimic. It's like this box, this chest on the ground. You open up, you're like, oh, treasure's gonna be inside. No, you're chomped to death. It's like, what happened?
Yeah, that's
It's
a D&D thing.
Now I know. Now I know. Don't open every chest. Be careful around them.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Mimics are totally from Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's also mimics in Prey, in the newest one, Prey.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I haven't really heard from C, but like, what's been your experience with what you're willing to tolerate as a challenge and what you're willing to say this is way too much?
For games?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, definitely, with the AI tracking through walls. Basically, if I'm getting pre-fired, as soon as I peek and then they start firing at me, yes, I know it is a sci-fi based game, but still, you got to think, you can set it to such a certain, you can set it to where it's so fast to where you get fired, they start shooting at you as soon as you peek. When it starts hitting that point where as soon as you peek, you start getting shot at, it's just not fun, right?
Hmm.
The two jackal snipers.
The thing I hate the most about some
You know,
shooting games. Oh, sorry.
but like, I think though, like, if it's like a standard, more realistic, time for like when I peak and then I start getting shot at by the AI, then yes, I could have a lot of fun in that type of a game. But again, if I'm just peaking on easier modes and just repeatedly dying because the AI can tracks through a wall and basically knows where I am at all times, then it's just not fun, right? That's how I feel like with any game that's a campaign based, any game that has AI in it, right?
Hmm.
So that's I think the number one thing with a lot of games is if developers can develop a good AI for a campaign based game or any game really that has AI in it, the game's gonna do really well. So
Yeah, especially for single player games, that is in fact very true. Because that's a huge uh, portion of the game. Um, oh my god, Tom's gonna kill me when I say this, but he's also gonna laugh his butt off at the same time. He had another guest on his Broken Silicon podcast a long time ago that actually deals deals with that sort of thing. So I will get the link also to that episode of Broken Silicon in the description. I told you guys, literally, my description is just going to have so many links. Literally, it's going to be like looking through a laundry list, for pity's
make
sake.
sure to unlock those scroll wheels if you want to check out the last link.
I know, right?
Mhm.
Oh, dear heavens. But yeah.
And if
You
you
might
can't
even have to
unlock your scroll
timestamp
wheel,
them.
you are literally screwed.
Well, I'm going to have to timestamp this here regardless, so I don't have a choice.
Great
Yeah.
idea.
It's because literally, like, we've been talking about this for a while, but I'll tell you after we're done how long we've been going for. But anyway, let's try to finish up Mass Effect 3 here because there's only like one more line left, so.
Yay!
Yeah, so. Yeah, however, some of the cut content is more towards the end of the game. Yeah, so basically, when it's all said and done, um, Mass Effect 3 was the shortest game of all of them to run through. Took about, I think, the average was somewhere between 45 to 50 hours. And so by having this extra cut content, my understanding is it's going to add an additional 6 hours. So which means that you're looking at closer to a 60-hour game.
It probably took me longer because I was doing like every single side quest and collecting everything. Oh, good times.
But see, that's the thing. I knew this game inside and out well enough that I knew where to go in all three titles, that I literally just could go off memory. It was like literally like clockwork. And it was to the point to where the fastest run through I've ever had with the original Mass Effect, which includes Pinnacle Station and Bring Down the Sky being done as well, literally only took me, I think it was like 58 hours when in one run through I did, which was stupid incredible for that game. And then Mass Effect 2, shortest amount of time I beat that game in, 48 hours. Mass Effect 3, 42 hours.
Nerd.
Oh, well, I mean, that's what happens when you play the trilogy like literally 5 times over. But yeah, I can definitely say I'm a hardcore fanboy it goes without saying. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious to see exactly how a lot of fans are going to react to this in the end with these changes that are coming down the pipeline for it, but will also introduce, I think, a new depth of quality to it. A lot of this, there is a lot of content in here that hasn't been fully officially confirmed yet, but so far over 60% of it has been confirmed by BioWare, which to me that's a good thing. That means that pretty much this leak this quality assurance tester gave, I think if it's not 100%, then I could see it being as much as 80% on the line. And I think that's going to be nice overall because it's going to breathe life, for one thing, back into the franchise. But it's also going to give people like Ghost, and then see if you want to, you're welcome to, check it out for yourself. It's also going to give them a chance to play it because even on older hardware, playing the first Mass Effect is still a chore because the game had its fair share of bugs and glitches to this day, which aren't fully resolved. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it for all the footnotes that the leaker had. Was there any other small topic or anything on Mass Effect that you guys just wanted to cover real quick?
Nothing immediately comes to mind. I'm just excited to play this. Run through it again, especially on PC.
Things that I should probably say off recording.
Hey guys,
Yes.
you guys down to play the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer when it comes out again? I'm down.
Will there be?
If it involves booties, yes.
I hope so.
I
Boobs.
from oh God Almighty!
I can show you my
Boobs. Boobs.
Oh dear. Anyway, so to answer your original question, Funny, my understanding from when I was talking with him, he said that they are going to put it in, but when he was still doing testing for the game, that wasn't finalized if they would keep it the way it was and just simply change the graphics, or if they would change a few, mechanics up here and there.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so I don't know. I would say just keep your eyes open, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens from there.
I'm really looking forward to the new gamer poops from Manslayer on YouTube. All the different remixes that he does in mashups.
Yeah.
Well, bang, okay?
Oh boy. We'll see what he does with some of these new lines that might pop up with some of the extra content they're gonna add.
Mm-hmm.
So
report to the ship as soon as possible. Well, bang, okay?
Oh boy. Well, yeah, that's lines like that, or I should go, or
this is my favorite store on the Citadel.
I was thinking the same thing too, buddy. Oh dear. Yep. So yeah, so I think that pretty much covers it all. So unless anybody has anything else, I think this is a good place to call it before we take up way too much more time.
Well, I think your SSDs will thank us if we would probably start cooling our jets right now. So
yeah, actually, yeah, for sure. So, well, to the viewers who are going to be watching this, we thank you for tuning into the podcast. We apologize. Literally, this is going to be the first podcast I'm releasing, and all right, you ready for this? We've been going on 3 hours.
Really?
Well, 3 games, an hour a game.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty fair.
We should be done in like another hour.
Yeah, I know.
I will make no apologies. I've spoken.
How much is Mass Effect?
The Legendary Edition, the final price hasn't been fully decided yet. Pre-orders won't even be up probably until the end of the month, from what I'm understanding. But the potential price point they might shoot for is about $60 to $70.
God damn.
What's the basic versions? Like standard?
Well, that's it. That's the standard version, and how much it'll probably cost.
Jesus.
Well, think about it. You're getting 3 games for what essentially used to be the price for one of them.
Yeah.
Well, you see, I did get the Mass Effect Trilogy for $15 on sale one time.
Wait, hold on a second. With all the DLC?
Yep, everything in it.
Oh, that's right. Because I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Origin had this massive fire sale with it.
Hey, Melodic.
Something like that.
Yeah. So, what is it? See?
I was wondering if I could team you to your PC real quick to set up Nightbot.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Because Nightbot and Discord are really weird. You have to like connect it to your Twitch, like on your side. It's weird.
Oh, okay. Well, we could talk about that more later. So, anyway, sorry viewers, but we'll definitely pay attention to you now. So, yeah, but thanks for tuning in, guys. We do apologize that we went on this long, but hey, there was definitely a lot to talk about, and you know, the good news is they've already given us a approximate timeline. They chose spring of 2021 to release this. The reason why they chose this is because Andromeda and Mass Effect 3 both released in the beginning of Q2 of their respective years. And so, from the developer's perspective, it just made more sense to keep the development cycle like that. So yeah, so we'll see what happens at this point, but I'm excited. I know everybody here is excited. So before we sign off, does anybody have any last words or anything they want to say to the audience?
I love you guys.
But if you guys do not, and I repeat, like and subscribe this podcast, me and Melodic will hunt you down and slap you silly and then give you a bunch of hugs, all right?
I feel
Y'all,
I sense a lot of legal problems coming. Muscles, can you be my defense attorney?
You don't
Sure,
put that in.
I can
You don't
totally
put-
handle
Hey,
that.
no, hold on. You don't put that in, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, you can put me on retainer.
No, retainer, there you go.
make sure to check out my scary stories that I be telling.
Yeah, so on that note, guys, we also have other people here who do content creation. So please, we're going to go ahead and get links to their stuff in the descriptions. So please like and subscribe their stuff or follow their stuff if they're on social media. Because we're pretty chill guys. You'll find that out very quick. So yeah, I don't have anything else to say at this point. Anything else that you guys want to mention real quick before we head off?
Just kidding, we're not chill.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. What about you, Ghost?
Alien boobies!
Boobs.
Boobs.
Muscles, why in the world did you sound like...
Ladies and gentlemen, GhostTigrex.
Yeah, pretty much. Muscles, why did you go all like what's his name? Clouseau, like sounding like Inspector Clouseau there for a second.
I don't know. I leaned into my mic a little bit.
Oh, because you took on that whole, like weird thing he does that Clouseau does when he says certain words. Like I'm going to go visit the Pope.
Sure. I mean, yeah. Maybe I'll add that to my voices that I'll prep for my D&D campaign that I'm writing.
Oh, nice. See, there you go. There you go. The content's there. I like it. All right. Anyway, we're gonna end it now. So thank you for tuning in, guys. Hopefully you're enjoying your day. This has been the Armored Technically podcast with Melodic Warrior as your host, signing off. And we do have a technical, especially a computer gaming tech podcast coming up soon. So hopefully I can get that out sooner rather than later. Have a good time and peace out.